two assholes.
Boys and guns, huh?
Oh, Chantal, je suis très fatigué. Très fatigué.
No fuck about it, let's just get down to business. Want straight stuff? We want nothing kinky. Alright? Get on your back and moan a lot.
But you've come just a little bit too late, young boy. Yeah, I'm a cheap boy, all right? I don't want to service no one no more.
Right.
Where's Anne?
Listen.
You want me to be your mum? No sex, eh? Lie down. So that's the end of us then? You still come and see me?
Je ne pourrai pas, chérie. I'm dead. Got a kid now.
Come on, Tom. Most of the men that come here have got kids. Some of them grandchildren. Bonne chance. She's a nice girl, isn't she? A real, proper girl.
Look, I'm going away.
Tu pars?
Wait. Taking Angie and a kid with me. Emigrating. Somewhere away from all this shit.
Then I'm part of your shit.
And no, arrête. It's just... I want my kid to have a proper decent life. Elle est la chose plus importante dans ma vie maintenant. I've got to do right by her.
You're losing your French. Glad you find a little nice wife. I'm very happy for you.
Come here, girl. Look, I got to tell you.
My father abused me and my mother. Raped her, then he raped me. That weren't normal. So he says his confession and everything's all right again in the eyes of God. Your mum, she turns booze, gets pissed all the time. When she's pissed, she gets violent. She hit me once with one of those non-stick pans. Blood from the edge just slid right off. I'm in hospital 5 weeks with severe concussion. So, come 14, I make my way down south. You know, bright lights, big city, eh? Anyway, meet this guy. Think my look's changed. Why, he says that he loves me to get me work. Felt safe, cared for, loved. Then he says I've got to sleep with all his mates, you know, free love and all that. Don't mind. I mean, I could have got involved in some serious shit like drugs, alcohol, crime. Then I found out he was charging all his so-called friends for me. Cornered him with this and he just hit me. Same old story been going on since the day I was born. Today's my birthday. I'm 20. Always said that I'd change things when I was 20. So today I've given up. No more of that shit for me. Now yesterday you would have been in luck. You could have got a blowjob for 15 quid. Fucked me straight for 25, 45 without a condom. You could have fucked me up the arse for 50 quid, and for 100 quid. The whole kit and the caboodle. All the above, plus anything you could think of. But tough, because like I said, I've given up. It's bad luck for you. Good luck for me.
No!
nothing to do with me. She just took the gun. What the fuck you doing with me? What's she gonna turn? Fucking hit me! She's fucking brains out!
Give me the gun.
She's the gun.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's
Okay,
done it. Where's Tony? Where's Tony?
He's gone. He's gone.
What do you mean he's gone?
I mean, he's fucked off, gun split, pissed off, legged it, okay?
Well, he's not here. He's not here, no? Fuck, let's go, let's go! Tell him everything once you get him disappeared. Are you fucking sure that he disappears with his bird and his baby, and you and me, mate, we disappear to the bottom of the fucking river, courtesy of Prop's dead? Tell him the fucking works, mate, and just let him get out of my hand, eh? Forgot about that. Don't fuck it, right? Just get some bloke off the street and cut his hand off. Prop's ain't gonna be acting with this, he's no hand expert, fucking She's kids have always been and that's made me look stupid. And if it makes me look stupid, what's it make you look? No money. He's going nowhere. Fuck! He's busy. Oh, Jesus, he's got a brain. What? Tell him everything. What? Hear me out. Tell him everything. And then we'll fuck off together, yeah? Don't pull that shit on me. I'll put our fucking asses in fucking guacamole. Because the fucking fun is getting out your fucking head, fucking dickhead. Fucking head's gone overseas, baby. I fucking know. Sure. Where the fuck were you?
Where was I? I'm here.
Well, boy, you're just gonna leave, you're not...
Say, look, speed. Get rid of the programme, I'm buying nappies for my kid.
Well, nappies, eh?
Now these ones, they're shit. They're cheap, they leak. These ones are not so bad. They're a bit bulky, make my kid's ass look like a sumo wrestler. These ones, these are the best. And they're pink because she's a girl.
Tony, please. Just wait. I've got to tell you something.
What?
I miss you.
Likewise, Speed. Come on.
Get what you wanted. Smash it. We're home. Not quit. It's just the gorilla's way of asserting his power. I mean, he's the boss, right? You try and kick him out, he batters fuck out you, and then shoves it right up your ass. Fucking sick. Nature. It's a job, mate. Did you know that most of the mafia boys in Sicily don't get murdered? They die from stress or heart attacks. Is that a fact? That is a fact. Look. Oh, who's getting this?
Well, don't fucking look at me, I got it last time.
Don't fucking look at me, I got it last
You ain't
time.
paid one.
You didn't get it last time, I got it last time. How many bills have I paid?
No,
2 bills.
I definitely paid you last time.
You've paid twice, Speed. I've paid twice. You paid for a bit. Better. You paid one fucking bill. Pay the bill.
No, I paid you fucking right.
Pay the bill. You haven't paid one thing.
You want me to pay? Yeah, you want me to pay? You fucking eat. You want me to fucking pay?
Pay the bill, will you? All my money's in his fucking account.
I swear he knows. He fucking knows. Calm down, he's just got a fear, that's all. Look, I know he knows. We're going to fuck this up. I can feel it. All held together. This is this. Boys, I've got to go home. I'm fucked.
Drive you home.
No, yeah, I'll get this way.
Listen, you've had a bad night, it happens, right? We're going to be very pissed off if you leave us now. Easy, Bear. You're frightening the little boy.
Oh, alright, fuck it.
Maybe you just better get off.
No water. I'd love my kid to grow up by the sea. On your knees.
Come on, son, do as you're told.
Only Hail Mary's, Father.
Look, just shut the fuck up. Put your hands in the air.
Sorry about this, Tone.
Hello, come on.
I really am.
Just a little bit of 10 cents up to
Best mates and all that. I've got a woman and a baby, you heartless bastard. Put yourself in my shoes. That's no fucking excuse. Alright? How about, it's my duty. What about you, Speed? Dear old Speed. I like you. You're fucking basic, but I like you. It's fucking killing you gotta do this. Not like that bastard Bear, eh? Who's next on his list, Speed? Hey, you? What a pair of fucking idiots you are. Now say your prayers, you fucking mug. Come on, get up! Now, wait a minute! I want to tell you a story. It's my will. You owe me that. My last words to you, my girl and my baby. Go on. Keep your hands up! Did you honestly think I didn't know what you were up to? My little farewell party at the cafe. From that moment on, I knew something was up. I could feel it in my bones. Do you know what the chances are that 2 straight men take a 10-minute piss together? I don't know. About 200 to 1. So a little alarm started ringing in my head. When you came out, you thought you looked so cool. You didn't look cool. You looked like a couple of frightened fucking chickens. What? Fuck, I don't like this. Shut up! Making you look stupid again, ain't I, Bear? Perfect opportunity to be the boss. Fucking Laurel and Hardy, eh?
Very clever. So what? You fucking led us on.
Never.
See? But there's something you don't know. Ha! Pops wants it on his desk in half an hour. Now hold on! I haven't finished my story. You've got to hear the end and it'll blow your tiny fucking minds away, I promise. You see, I'm the world's greatest paranoiac. Even my parole officer said I should get help. So, do you remember at the whorehouse? Oh, fuck. It was the perfect opportunity. What is that? Shut up, Betty. I'm not fat.
Right, so,
hello, darling. I'm okay. I'm on my way home now. It's all over. Just you, me, and our baby.
I've got some bad news for you and I've got some good news. Bad news first. I've lost a hand. Yeah, like I haven't got it anymore. Yeah. Don't start on me, alright? Have a little one. I'll be home when she wakes up. Oh, come on, leave my hand out of it, Angie. Now, the good news. I made enough money to get us the hell out of this country. Start packing, girl. First plane out. We can buy that bar in Spain.
How'd you reach me, Governor?
Now, courtesy of British Rail, mate, I fell in the track. Got my handcuff clean off.
Hell.
Yeah, covered in blood. Got up to look for it, looked everywhere.
Carl,
Yeah, what is it?
we're out of tequila.
That's all right, I'll sort it.
So why didn't you just find your end?
Does it look like it, arsehole?
That's all right, for an old movie.
Here's all about
The guys facing this, and setting the balls on it.
here's all about awesome guys going in. Right, well,
for the year.
so what it is, Sweaty, right, getting back to like your option and stuff, right, like
50 a year.
you're saying that is not your tape, so what is your tape, like, is it along the lines of fat damn demo, or like, what
Tom's busy doing stuff with the band. And I've got a mask on, so I don't know if you can hear me right or not. How you doing, Carly?
At the end of the year, you know that we're on this.
options, guys. Yeah, this is another thing, right? You know, I was on last week, Mike Copper. Oh, hello, Ray. How you doing, mate? You alright? Alright, love. No, I could walk for miles. I didn't waddle. I walk. Super Dave's waddles.
Melbourne with
Well, this is the last one I'm doing on this bit of paper. I've already got 2, and then I'm going to be bringing them all together so they don't look separate. You've got to make them look as if they're sitting together.
Yes, that's correct.
That should come off now. Yeah, the top inside here. No, no. I'll just stand around on it. Maybe you want one with
What's your options on Dave Charlotte? No, hold on, swear. You never answered my fucking options yet. I'm saying, you said Olive's not your type. So what is your type? What we're looking at here? Where we're going now? Like, are we going to be, like, what you're saying is your type? Like, I want to be like Fast Dance Emma or Power. Oh, Jerry, aye. You got a point there, so you read what you're saying there. Jerry grandson out of stalker, we're now all thinks he's in the army, doing army clothes on the floor.
Hello Raf, how you doing? Hello Tracy.
Hi Tracy, how you doing?
This is the last one on this bit of paper. I've got 2 done already. So once I'm finished this, I've got to tie them all together.
Still not answering it. For one, no, I wouldn't. Right? Because the rate's been there. Fuck that. You probably catch something. Your knob will probably fall off.
Yeah, I keep getting dragged, that's why.
The rate's been
That happens, eh?
everybody else.
Did it come up? Yeah.
Come on.
What's that all about? So yeah, he's got one watches there. Because the way I've done them standing up. So what I'm going to do is print that standing up. So you know that memory card like this is? Right. That nonsense one.
Right.
You need to stream you doing some airbrushing, Tracy.
Don't understand French. Sorry, English. What the fuck? Well, what would you rate it? What would you rate it?
Yesterday had a lot alright, your stream yesterday.
What the fuck? Yeah, free. I would say I'd say 5. 5. Was that a bit too much? Fuck's sake. Nah, at least it was a 3. Oh, what? 3 minutes ago? Come on, baby. When you're asking the questions, I mean, Like, why are you not answering them as well? How are you? You're not being...
Huh?
You should.
She's fucking... I don't know, because this bitch is not my type, so fucking... She's obviously fucking up. You put it on the spot behind your cunt.
I started watching your stream this morning, Riff Raff. But I only got like fucking 10 minutes in, then I had to make some phone calls and that.
Channel. Okay. I think it's but I'd just see it 5.
Steve, come in.
Stephen King, fuck that must have been funny.
At the end of the day, when the fuss is in the fun, isn't it? No, it's not that one middle, but I'll say that.
See what? 235? Right. Should tell you on there, is it not? Aye, but it should tell you at the top what the highest numbers are.
It's not
So 235 to 75.
It's just 0 and 30 right now.
What? No, see the picture, see the dial of the bed? Above it, it should tell you the temperature.
Oh, the bed for 75.
Right.
50 miles.
Right, and yours will what? 235?
That's not there yet, but the bed's still heating up.
Right, trying to get so that it was 75 in the bed and 235 on the morning.
Probably not, probably not. But no,
I need to change back to white now.
less the things change and I'll be back on, but I doubt it.
Start putting in some highlights.
That depends on what paint thinner you're using, Tracy. You should make your own up.
I can't tell you one thing, sorry, who takes some of bloody things.
Just fire away now, it's time before I go off, Sweaty, fire away.
Make your own thinner up. And same day, however ups and downs it was.
Was it not your birthday yesterday, Duff?
Fire away.
Was it your birthday yesterday? Riff Raff.
Pick up your phone and look at my YouTube channel. Why?
I just like cleaning the brush after. When it's black and white,
Pick up your phone and look at
it'd be
my
different if
YouTube
it was
channel.
colours, but when it's black and white, I just like to clean the brush out properly,
Street.
rather than just put the airbrush cleaner through it.
Kim. TV. Street Game TV.
My wife does craft time while she chokes me out. I've usually got a fan air here, but she's not turned it on today.
That is
Always
on.
next
No.
time I
I don't know, put it on
See you
there.
later,
No.
Sweaty. See you later. There's no on there what interests me like Street Game. Not a thing.
There's not really anything in there that's toxic. It's
Whatever that
isopropyl
is.
alcohol mixed with concentrated car wash and water
Suck Dina,
For the-
Dina.
for the cleaner. And the thinners is just 99% isopropyl alcohol and water mixed together, eh? Or just water.
Nothing on there what fucking... I can't understand you. Like, you're not English or like... I don't even understand your videos. So...
I'm in the middle of the fumes.
Me
She's at
putting
that
me-
side and I'm there
me
3D
putting me
printing.
subscribe there.
Can't get rid of it. Regardless, I'd need to sit in a different room.
Pardon. Video world. Right, anyway, I'm going to end this stream, man. Fucking, I might be back on later, I might not. See what happens. So if I send an invite, I'll send you one. On me, or let me gaming account. Catch you all later anyway. Take it easy.
Several people hit by a car. What's going on here? At least 12 killed, up to 15 injured after a car hit pedestrians in Germany.
He's a terrorist.
Fucking terrorist, man.
Tracy, are you still there?
Have you been that charger up there from the phone? absolutely are.
I need to make something a little bit of fudge before I start on the way. Methinks, methinks. Ouch.
What?
Bit of dust smoke. Right, see what you can do.
Yeah, you can leave it alone, actually. It's like a red plastic. Take me off something.
You won't do that again.
Well, not right now.
Right, you can dump it the other way, again.
How you doing, sweetie? That's fab news for you. Very you do.
You transfer that. Boy, right, yeah, minute.
Over the moon, mate, over the moon.
Right, go.
There's more chance of aliens landing.
Hello.
There's more chance of aliens landing, mate, than we having another kid.
How we diddling? I'm just going to get a quick smoke and then I'm going to start on the white.
And it's like, what is it, these things that's just appearing?
Someone's been a guy.
Like we on it, like that guy, it's the sculpture guy.
Oh, the monolith things.
I don't know if there's a many. Look at the dodgy weld on it, you know what I mean?
I've seen something about them.
I don't drink, sweetie. I've not had a drink since May.
There's a better there.
Heat up, man. Strongest I get now, mate, is coffee. Aye, all these well these wee hungry are just put them here.
The aliens.
I mean, because look at that stupid sculpture guy, you know, that's making big metal sculptures and they're even putting them in the sea and that. People are finding them. Yeah, people are finding them, man. And some of them look fantastic. He's got one of the big aliens here, so you can find them for you. There's actually one of the aliens. With little one on the way as well. Sure, mate, I'm sure. Statues, what do you call them?
I don't drink either, no sweaty. Comes a point where it's like, do you know what?
Oh.
Yeah. Not doing it anymore.
Please come here for any story. The experts in smoking and insurance will get you what you need.
I'd rather be doing this.
Statues are artistic creations made by sculptors to capture the likeness of an important person or animal. Statues are designed to be displayed and admired by humans, so it goes without saying that the best way to do this is to keep them on dry land. How then have some ended up forgotten and submerged in water? Find out in today's video as we talk about 10 creepy statues found by deep sea divers. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to The Supreme, and click the notification bell for more big content. Let's get rolling.
You still work? Fuck no, sweaty, I don't work anymore.
Number 10. Christ of the Abyss. Imagine going for a dive and coming across a stone Jesus Christ. That would be quite an experience. In the waters of San Fruttuoso, just off the Italian Riviera, there is a submerged statue of Jesus created by sculptor Guido Galletti. The statue, named Christ of the Abyss, was dropped into the Mediterranean Sea in August 1954 to mark the spot where the first Italian scuba diver died in 1947. For that reason, you could consider the 8-foot-tall statue an elaborate gravestone, which makes swimming by it pretty creepy. If a diver were to swim by the statue in the late 90s and 2003, they would have been met with an alarming sight: a corroded, one-handed Christ covered in crustaceans. The statue has been repaired and restored twice since then. Number 9. Amphitrite. In Greek mythology, Amphitrite was a nymph and the wife of the sea god Poseidon. She is considered to be the mother of seals and dolphins. Divers off the shore of Grand Cayman can get a glimpse of the hauntingly beautiful statue in all of her ghostly glory. The mythical sea creature was carved out of bronze by sculptor and diver Simone Morris and lowered 55 feet below the waters of Sunset Reef. The statue is big and imposing. Saw the horror movie creep emerging from the darkness as they swam closer. You don't even need to use your imagination here, as one diver filmed their encounter and put it up on YouTube. The comments on the video are pretty... Cut it in arm. You can only imagine. What must have been going through his mind.
Sweaty's not an old man. Works.
Legendary artifacts of untold myths, although the rewards have been plenty, more often than not.
I would say Sweaty's in his late 20s, I think.
Unexplainable objects, something secret. Let's take a look at the 10 most terrifying objects found in the deep sea. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to The Supreme, and click the notification bell for more lit content. Let's get
It must be a
rolling.
heavy smoker, Rich.
Number 10, the Bermuda Road. We're thinking about a single object because this regardless can be found in the coastal waters just off the Atlantic island of Bermuda, paves the way toward a different kind of terrifying creature. Researchers, archaeologists, and geologists alike have been utterly perplexed by the true nature of the Bermuda Road ever since its discovery in 1968, leading to a great debate as to who or what created this artificial road at the bottom of the ocean's bed. And more importantly, where it could have led to. You see, what is so
Two kids new, have you, mate?
is that there are many who believe it was
Keep them busy, mate.
as a
Keep them busy, man.
that pointed toward the
You're fairer than as much kids as fucking Sean Foster did down here.
The Bahamas forms part of a chain of islands off the eastern coast of Miami, putting it in a close vicinity to where several ancient scholars believe the lost civilization to be large, flat rocks cut at precise right angles, seemingly set in a series of equally precise straight lines, and some of which measure upward of 13 feet in stature. The true nature of the Bermuda Road is as terrifying as it is mysterious, and we may never know who created it. Number 9, the sunken alien. And for our ninth entry, let's turn our attention toward the terrifying object that features in the thumbnail for today's video. Seemingly what appears to be a rusted and waterlogged sculpture of the xenomorph, the titular horrifying entity that features in Ridley Scott's Alien franchise. It goes without saying, but sculptors and artists across the planet have had a particular habit of installing their work at the bottom of the sea, only to be left behind in obscurity for terrified scuba divers to find on their travels. Although the artist believes this particular piece remains anonymous, countless scuba divers have since submerged themselves off the Russian coast to gaze at its mysterious design. The incredible thing about these underwater sculptures is that compared to terrestrial objects, they are instead subject to the living environment of the ocean. As they lie sunken at the bottom of the ocean bed, both their texture and chemical composition succumb to the ever-changing waters of the seven seas. Whatever the outcome, the result is certainly terrifying. Number 8, a train wreck. You may be thinking, how in the world could a single locomotive train have found itself sunken at the bottom of the ocean? But in this bizarre and unnerving instance, there isn't just one, but two of them. Just off the coast of Long Branch in New Jersey, a mysterious train wreckage has had both historians and amateur enthusiasts.
Joey's usually got his mic on. Anytime I've been in, he's usually got his mic on.
90 feet at the bottom of the New Jersey coastline, two steam locomotives lay undiscovered for over 100 years, gathering rust in the cool waters of the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't until 1985 when they were discovered by a scuba diver by the name of Paul Heffler that their existence came to light. And since then, how they arrived there or who even built them has remained a complete and utter mystery. The thing is, these aren't just any locomotives, but instead a rare breed of machinery generally used in train yards. Perplexingly, for such a specific locomotive, there are no records of them ever being built. Still, to this day, the origin of the train wreckage remains a complete and utter mystery. In all likelihood, we may never know the terrifying truth behind the Long Branch wreckage. Number 7, underwater Stonehenge. The ancient mystery behind Neolithic Britain Stonehenge is astonishing enough, but it seems that North America has its own terrifying instance of entry to contend with, one that is instead sunken beneath the frigid waters of Lake Michigan's Grand Traverse Bay. After searching the Great Lakes for ancient shipwrecks by using the same remote echolocation technique, archaeologists were perplexed to discover a series of ancient stone objects arranged in a frighteningly deliberate pattern.
It's still have a joint, aye.
Although these stones were arranged in parts resembling
I won't need
circular
a
patterns
drink.
reminiscent of Stonehenge and several other stone circles found across Europe, these rocks instead seem to span over a mile in length. Not only that, but scientists were also staggered to find that one of these stones, a particularly large boulder, held evidence of a prehistoric carving depicting a mastodon. strangely enough, ever since its discovery in 2007 by Professor Marcali, little to no information has since been revealed to the public as to the extent of its aquatic stone surface. Although several archaeologists have publicly spoken of its significance, this mystery at the bottom of the Grand Traverse seems to directly challenge our civilization's ancient history. It begs the question, what other mysteries have been lost to the sunken depths? Number 6. A dead giraffe. It goes without saying, but although many strange things have been discovered in the icy waters of New York City's harbor, this one is perhaps the most bizarrely terrifying of all of them. A dead giraffe, a creature that has no place in the urban jungle of the Big Apple, yet a creature that tragically met its watery grave in the cold, bone-chilling waters of one of the most famous cities on the planet. Back in 1981, the New York Times reported the many bizarre objects that had been reportedly found in the city's harbor. In one instance, they casually mentioned that the corpse of a giraffe had once been sighted beneath the water, who had fallen into the harbor and drowned after being shipped from the Bronx Zoo to Brooklyn's dock at the turn of the century. Since that casual mention, urban legends of the giraffe's corpse gained popularity, but it wasn't until several decades later that the dead giraffe was actually discovered, much to the astonishment of the city's population. After surveying the depths of the New York harbor, the Army Corps of Engineers were terrified to find the bleached bones of the giraffe half submerged in sand. Who knows what other urban legends are true? Number 5. Old Whitey. On the topic of gigantic lakes, this particular underwater entity is a whole new level of terrifying. In fact, compared to any other entity that you could face while scuba diving beneath the murky waters of Lake Superior,
we don't need too much to live for. We don't need to share stories or make art or play big. We don't need to stare into space and expand our minds. We don't need to make love, make music, or make time. Because the sun still shines, even if the sun rise. You don't need to drive. You don't need to live just to show you're alive.
this one would be your worst nightmare. Old Whitey, otherwise known as Grandpa, a human corpse that has since remained trapped in a sunken ship for nearly a century. Although his true name has been lost throughout the ages, down to the frighteningly cool waters of the Great Lakes, the corpse of Old Whitey has been perfectly preserved since the tragic shipwreck of the 1920s. Believed to have been a crewman of the SS Kamloops, Old Whitey was a part of a crew who
Well,
dived
there's
into a
these two.
freighter ship specifically built to fit through the canal that connected Lake Erie to Lake Ontario. However, in the early winter of 1967, a violent storm shook Lake Superior and the SS Kamloops was tragically sunk, killing her entire crew. Although the ship vanished for decades, the divers that finally discovered its tragic fate were terrified to see the perfectly preserved corpse of Old Whitey float past as they surveyed its sunken corridor. Still, to this day, his corpse remains trapped within its wreckage, unable to escape his sunken
Hello,
soul.
Azuzio. How are you
Number
doing?
4. The Antikythera mechanism. Certain mysteries of the ancient world can be far more terrifying than we may expect. Take, for example, the Antikythera mechanism, a rusted object found at the bottom of the ocean back in 1901 as evidence of a historical shipwreckage just off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera. What this object is, though, is far more astonishing than a sunken shipwreck. The Antikythera mechanism appears to be an ancient computer over 2,000 years old, believed to have been constructed by ancient Greek scientists as late as 205 BC. For decades following its discovery, researchers and scholars were completely stumped as to how this incredibly complex device functioned. It wasn't until X-ray imaging was conducted on the object in the 1970s that some of its secrets were revealed. Some believe that this ancient computer was designed to track the motion of the stars and the planets of our solar system. Recently, scientists have discovered hidden inscriptions carved into its design. leading some to believe that
Sign
similar
back, sorry.
objects were
What is sign
created
back what?
alongside of it, which may still be found at the bottom of the ocean. The truth behind the anti-cathedral mechanism
Sign back
remains
what?
to be an
Sign
unsettling
back it.
mystery of
Oh, I
the
don't
ancient
know.
world.
Maybe?
Number 3. The sunken structures. Although long-lost cities and sunken tombs have featured heavily in horror fiction, the reality here is potentially far more terrifying. Several years ago, evidence of a gigantic stone monument was discovered at the bottom of the sea of Galilee in
I've not
northern
thought about
Italy.
signing any of them
Since
yet.
then, archaeologists across
I
the
know I'm
planet
going to
have
need to
been
start.
utterly baffled by their design, raising many questions as to who or what created them, as well as their purpose and significance within the long-forgotten society. Some believe it to have been constructed by the mythical Nephilim, an ancient race of giants. Others believe it to be a structure used for sacrificial purposes. The mysterious cone-shaped object was discovered over 9 meters beneath the waters by divers back in 2003. Strangely enough, its stature is staggering, with a diameter greater than the length of a Boeing 747, built purely out of basalt rock. It is twice the size of Stonehenge in England and weighs an estimated 60,000 tons. Although scientists are still struggling to establish any more evidence about this mysterious and elusive object, estimates essentially place the structure at being up to 12,000 years old. Whatever the case, this long, sunken structure is evidence of an advanced and well-organized society. Its origin may very well change the way we look at the history of our species. Number 2, 87 World War II bombs and
I don't know if I mind.
exaggeration. And an even more terrifying turn of events, though, it was
It's
the
something
Nazis
like
themselves that
something
brought the
like
discovery of these weapons of mass destruction to light. Back in March of
Hiya
2007,
Zozo, how you
bomb
doing?
disposal experts were frantically called to the beaches of Calshot in Hampshire, England, after 87 unexploded World War II bombs washed ashore one morning. 87 mortars, each of them measuring anywhere between 4 and 20 inches, had been bizarrely coughed up by the coastal waters of the English Channel after failing to hit their target during several bombing campaigns of World War II and being lost to the ocean for more than 70 years. Strangely enough, it's believed that the moon was responsible for storming the beaches with an arsenal of deadly explosives. You see, following a rare combination of extremely low tides and high atmospheric pressure caused by a lunar cycle known as the super blood moon, in a rare and shocking sequence of events, these explosives were disturbed from their sunken resting place. Thankfully, no one was injured in this bizarre event, but that's the thing. The moon seems responsible for 87.
Because when I seen it, it wasn't even uncrusted like that. It was pretty much brand new.
That one in that video was in the hole on the ocean bed.
Right.
There wasn't any like standing up.
I can't remember if that was the same one. But this one anyway, it's this guy seen about 20 more on there.
The one in that video said it was a Russian red.
What is must be that roughly player in that screen? Oh, is it a minute? Ah, you can, aye. There's a power cable and that.
From creepy creatures to a man trapped underwater, here are some of the most terrifying things found in the sea.
See what's going to boot these games up with?
Alien statue.
Morning, Charles. How
Here's
you
something
doing?
you don't want to run into while diving in the
Morning,
ocean.
Charles.
Imagine yourself floating gently through the murky depths on your first diving mission and coming across an alien stuck at the bottom of the water like some kind of horrifying.
Who's got it, are you? No one like who the fuck, but why the fuck?
From creepy creatures to a man trapped underwater, here are some of the most terrifying things found in the sea.
What, is that it, is it?
alien statue. Here is something you don't want to run into while diving in the ocean. Imagine yourself floating gently through the murky depths on your first diving mission and coming across an alien stuck at the bottom of the water like some kind of horrifying fossil. Well, off the coast of Russia, there is a steampunk xenomorph statue and nobody quite knows where it came from. No artist ever came forward to claim it, and to this day, it is a complete mystery. The alien, or xenomorph as they are known as in the popular franchise, is built in a steampunk fashion with gears and bolts and other metal objects, all of which have taken on a particularly nasty rust from being underwater for so long. Of course, this is not the only steampunk memorabilia around, as there is everything from the infamous Predator made from nuts and bolts to massive Godzilla
How you doing,
made
Charles?
from
You
the
alright?
same. The only difference here is somebody decided to dump their creation into the ocean for unsuspecting divers to stumble upon in dismay. But you know what they say. In the ocean, no one can hear you scream. Human hand. Here is a freaky one for you. This was not something found in the ocean exactly, but more of something found inside of a shark's belly. And obviously sharks live in the ocean. The terrifying object found inside of a shark in 2019 was a severed human hand, complete with a wedding ring. The shark had been killed because it had already been deemed a threat. In the autopsy, they found that inside of the massive 10-foot, 3-meter tiger shark was a man's hand. This immediately raised an alarm because in the same area of Saint-Gilles, a 44-year-old Scottish tourist had been reported missing after going for a swim by himself. According to Metro News, the unnamed man and his wife had been spending a week on vacation on the island of Reunion, and after the man failed to return from his swim, his wife had sent for help. However, even after divers searched the sea, there was absolutely no sign of the man, other than the hand pulled from the shark. Definitely, it was a shocking autopsy. The last thing I would want on a nice relaxing vacation is to have an unpleasant encounter with a tiger shark. And now for number 8, but first, what is the thing that scares you the most about the sea? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. Anaconda. This one did not happen in the sea, but it did happen in the Formosa River in Brazil, which is basically the Amazonian Sea. In any case, when Bartolomeo Bove and his diving partner strapped on their gear and went for a dive in the river with their equipment, Bartolomeo was quick to run into a giant green anaconda, 23 feet, 7 meters in length, and weighing almost 200 pounds, which is 91 kilograms, simply lounging in the water like you or I would lounge in the tub. Rather than run away screaming like I definitely would have, Bartolomeo decided to shove his underwater camera in the giant snake's face. This kind of discovery would have terrified anyone, but it did not faze the diver at all. And it didn't seem to faze the anaconda either. He slithered off through the water like a massive eel completely at ease. The snake gave the camera a quick lick, apparently a little curious, and then went about its business, which shows that these animals are not the aggressive and dangerous things everyone has believed them to be. I don't know how the cameraman could have stayed so calm, because I am terrified right now just thinking about being underwater with a giant snake. Have you ever found a scary animal while you were swimming? Blackbeard's vessel. Blackbeard was arguably the most infamous pirate in the history of pirates, and for a long time, Blackbeard's famous ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was lost beneath the waves, but it was found in 1996. I can't imagine a more terrifying shipwreck to discover on the bottom of the ocean. The Queen Anne's Revenge began her life as a slaving vessel for the French, before Blackbeard got a hold of it and terrorized the Caribbean. The ship was equipped with up to 40 guns, a whole team of bloodthirsty pirates, and a multitude of other weapons. This boat will continue to be the most fear-inspiring vessel for the rest of history. The wreck was found in 1996 in Palm Bay, Florida, and in 1998, the state made an agreement that gave Intersul Inc. rights to make copyrighted photos and videos of it. Florida and North Carolina began excavating the wreck, and in 2011, North Carolina state authorities confirmed that the shipwreck was undoubtedly the Queen Anne's Revenge. In the wreck, they found apothecary waste stamped with little fleur-de-lis royal French symbols, small amount of gold, many weapons, and a bell engraved with the date 1705. What a great treasure. In 2015, the state of North Carolina passed a law where all images related to the Queen Anne's Revenge excavation were instantly property of the state and public records without copyright protection. Interestingly enough, Blackbeard died on a different ship on November 22nd, 1718, and
Hey, I need to change back to black.
Blackbeard's reign of terror was finally over as he was killed by 5 gunshots and impaled at least 20 times by both swords and knives. What a miserable end to a miserable person, and an interesting legacy left at the bottom of the ocean for hundreds of years. World War II remains. This is a truly grisly sight to behold. After the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor during World War II, America targeted a Japanese military base at Chute Lagoon in Micronesia. The attack was carried out by 500 aircrafts and additional
What the fuck
submarines.
is Tom
And
watching?
even though the Japanese took most of their larger
The
bases from
idea,
the area beforehand, the USA managed to sink.
Got no idea it was something on YouTube.
Right, I'll be back shortly.
Yeah, it's just no booting up, is it? It's maybe needing their power on it. There's power down there. Down, and the smart socket down there. Just down to your, down to the side of you there, can I have it? On the smart socket down there, the big one, the extension cable. See what I'm on about?
Aye, there's flashing.
Right. Should be an empty hole on that, isn't it? Well,
Aye, there's a couple.
Just need to find out what one here. I'm pretty sure once it was in, it needs to be careful to get switched on. We got another fucking riffraff.
I think that's it.
Yeah, it's coming on now. Two hours for a laptop there. No signal, but that's fucking again. That's still at 128 gig. 64 gig one. Where is the 128 gig one? Did you put it in that drawer?
That card is 128 gig.
What card is?
The one
That's what I'm asking, so that's still a 128 gig card, right? Because I've got a funny feeling that card's not right, like. The card that gives you when you put the greens on it and I switched it on, it come up no problem with. So I reckon it's that card.
But green light's just one solid, not flashing.
So what does that mean?
That's the like SD card beat.
Reading, it's just jammed in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be flashing, right? Time you go, let's see it. Actually, real where it was before.
Just got to get a wee smoke and then start again. Black.
Is it easy to transfer for that card to another card? Will it take long?
Should be. Just the matter of
There's another 64 gig card in that drawer. If no, I could take one of my cameras in there. Is there 64 gig in there?
Yeah.
Don't swan it, you can.
I'll have a look.
I left my protest days back in the 60s. Hello Bronx, how you doing?
You want to have a look?
No, I can have a look, you know. Can't even see where it's meant to go, mate. Oh, come here, come there.
Tuesday.
What are they doing on the day?
Who?
What in the world?
Are they on the day? It's not like them.
This is Sunday there on it.
Okay. You listen to the old timers with active emails.
Empty.
Hey, this is Reverend Larry Pettiford with Hope in the Word Ministry. Hey, welcome. Just a quick encouragement, let you know Jesus loves you, God loves you no matter what you've done, how far you think you got away from it. You went to that cross to die for you and me. Amen. Hey, just a quick reminder, today is Giving Tuesday. I said today is Giving Tuesday. Giving. Bless someone. Instead of bless yourself, bless someone. That's what I'm asking you to do. We're raising this month teddy bears and pajamas to give to Child Crisis Nurses. Kids that are less unfortunate, we want to bless them with a pair of pajamas and a teddy bear. That's what they've asked for.
And there's a problem with the drive down the driving house.
Those on PlayStation 4, you get the
Sometimes you do that, I've got a bulb on it, I've got that.
You'll get large or small to help us to bless these children. Amen. Those who may be watching on Facebook, you can do the same. Go to our website, www.child hope.ministry.com. Click on donate. If you're not comfortable using your Visa, MasterCard, you can send a check to our PO Box. We're 501(c) ministry, tax deductible. But help us to bless these children at Crisis of the Nursery.
You're the only ones that can vote them out.
Teddy bear, the jams, we believe in God for the abundance. Let me leave you with a scripture, Luke 6:38, a very familiar passage. Many of you heard. Luke 6:38 reads as follows. Give, and it will be given to you. It says give. First of all, you got to give. And then here's the promise. It will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be poured into your lap. But I love it because the first thing it says is to give.
You see that one?
If you don't give, you can't receive nothing. If you don't plant a seed in the garden, how do you expect to receive what you planted in that garden back? Amen? So give. And we can't save the world, this ministry can't, and you can't. But if the Holy Spirit is
Then he used ever watched this guy, him and his wife at day of preaching, open the world.
You need to obey now before the devil says, I'll have you say,
He was in the jail for killing his ex-mother-in-law or something.
We're Hope in the Word ministry. We're bringing you Hope in the Word every Sunday morning, Lord willing. 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, turning live to Phoenix, Arizona. Help us to bless these children. Partner with us. Amen. Bless them with a teddy bear, a pair of pajamas. Not much, but they wanted it. That's what I believe God for. This is what He called us to do. Some of you, He's speaking to you. Like I said, your gift, large or small, will help it. Somebody said, all I got is $1. I tell you, if 100 people are watching, 100 people gave $1. You know what we got? $100. But if you didn't obey it, said your dollar didn't mean nothing, and we had 100 people that said the same thing, we got $0. All free, free, Diane. So look here, help us to help these children. Bless us that we can bless them. Amen? Because I pray to God, and when I pray to Him, He touches people's hearts. He's touching many of your hearts right now to help us. Go to hopeinthewordministry.com. Click on donate. Send that donation while you're moving. We're taking them till, I believe, I don't have a calendar, I forgot the date, I believe it's December 18th. Give us enough time to go buy these teddy bears at the gym. We'll be posting pictures, video clips on our website, and you see us deliver these to these child crisis of the nurses. Amen. Partner with us. Help us. I'm out of here. But you give. You obey God. Help us to help these children. In Jesus' name, God bless you. Keep the faith.
Hello, Crossy, how you doing?
We're on to the 70-year-old lesbian. Hi, Crossy, how you doing?
I've got, Crossy, I've already got these two at this side. I'm doing this and then I'm going to tie them all in together. Cheers, Crossy.
That's it, right? Cool. Close to your arms. When you set that back onto charging that, mate, so we'll just put that fire up there so you need to move it. And when you put it back there, you just need to get these two cables working. But you're going to stick a blue one in there as long as the power cable's in there.
Come help me shovel all the snow we've got. I think you've got loads of snow, happy?
You put it up here, didn't you? Put it in there. No, that's good. You've got that black one there. It fell down there. I see it because of the value in that and the waters and stuff. My first name plugged in, is it? Because the shaver's plugged in it. You can make it unplugged now, but yeah, water for isn't it? And see. Right, just need to plug in, isn't it? See that one that's unplugged in with your feet? Yeah. That's it. Right, so you need to unplug that cable in there. Work it in there, nice.
I'm gonna go for a quick shower.
Okay, darling. What you love, brother?
What's going on, Dippy? Wee Happy.
You Dippy happy?
How you doing, Happy? You alright? Hoping the world got disconnected. Hoping the world, whatever. Hoping the world got disconnected. Hoping the world, whatever. Don't seem to be lagging as much today.
Yeah.
Parents have killed their children. This world's fucked up, isn't it?
Right.
Sick fuckers in the world, innit?
Mm-hmm.
Eat go. Go. What's that shit on my shirt? You can buy that with paint, you know? Yeah?
No, I don't think so.
Cool little bit. You barely see it. More fashion show where I'm going. Yeah, they broke. You did. Alexa, turn up TV.
I ran up the street and I got to the front and it was just a war and firehouse.
I don't know what I could do.
That's very bad.
With the front door on fire, the only way through to the back of the house was over a caravan. Another neighbour, Daniel Stevenson, was also there, trying to get up to the back window. Nick Philpott was on the phone in the backyard.
The thing is, I didn't tell her went to get the door in the back bedroom. And when I climbed the ladder, I noticed that the window was smashed. And I tried to shout through the window, but it was easy to say, right, put your knife down and walk back to the car.
I didn't go into that. I was on the top of the caravan, and the side window at the top of the caravan. Smoke was coming out of there, and there was more smoke than fire. You know, the smoke and black. That's
Captain Michael, can you see any flames? Now look at the back smoke. I can't get anything else now.
Beaten back by the smoke, Jamie began looking for another way into the house to rescue the children.
I was running around the kitchen. It's conservatory. Trying to get in. Trying to get forward. Thinking that there's no business there. Trying to get in.
4 minutes after receiving the first emergency call, the fire crew had arrived at the front of the house.
Because of where the fire started at the foot of the stairs, and the fact the fire spread up the stairs, in effect cut off any exit route for the children. So essentially anyone up there was trapped and there was no way they could get out. Once they went into the house, they were met by a very thick wall of black smoke. Could barely see a hand in front of the face. The smoke had hit the ceiling on the first floor and bounced all the way down to almost floor level. At this point, the temperature had been rising as well considerably. Just to the top of the stairs, there was a bedroom almost straight in front of you, and that was the first room they went into. And in that room, they did find one child.
Jade was the first child to be brought out. She was carried down and laid on the pavement, where desperate attempts were made to revive her.
They went into the next room, where they found 2 more children.
One by one, her brothers were brought out and laid side by side.
When I come right to the front, it was like a war zone. It was like, whoa, you know. That's when you realise how severe and how bad it was. Yeah. We've got emergency services here and everywhere, you know what I mean? And you've got babies coming out.
The 6 children were rushed to the Royal Derby Hospital, but it was too late to save 2-year-old Jay, Nick and Lorraine's only daughter, and their 4 younger sons, John, Jack, Jesse, and 5-year-old Jamie. The only surviving child, Wayne, was critically ill. He was moved to Birmingham Children's Hospital, where family and friends gathered.
We went in to see Wayne, and it was just heartbreaking to see.
At least he's not looking happy anymore. Right, I need to change back to white.
Within hours of the fire, 18 Victory Road was declared a crime scene.
Starting behind that, 2 possible causes. Somebody poured petrol through the letterbox. That was petrol being used from inside the property to set the fire.
Officers immediately questioned Lisa Willis, Mick Philpott's former mistress. She had lived at the house with Mick and Lorraine, but had left with her 5 children just 3 months earlier. She was quickly rebound. The local community struggled to come to terms with the unfolding tragedy. 2 days after the fire, Dwayne became its 6th victim.
The morning we went to see the children, we met Nick and Lorraine outside. They asked if we'd go with them, and I said yes. It's probably one of the worst things I've had to do in my life.
Tore me apart. Tore me apart. 6 beautiful children. Just taken away like that.
Mick Philpott told police that he wanted to talk to the press.
His main message was that he wanted to give this vote of thanks publicly.
First of all, I want to thank my 3 oldest children because they helped us cope with what's going on.
But his behaviour that day concerned and dismayed those watching.
I met with both of them in a private room opposite to brief them. He seemed to come in very jovial, really, very jovial manner. It was like it was some kind of game, it appeared.
And of course, the 4 firemen, the police, the ambulances, the doctors, the nurses.
There did not seem to be that genuine level of grief and the distraught nature of how people feel when they've lost a loved one.
We can't express our gratitude to everybody.
The first things that our children should be, please help us, somebody knows something. It was never ever once mentioned. If that was me, I'd be begging, please help me, somebody knows something.
I've actually been down to my our home and what we saw, we just get on with it. But
there was no heartfelt appeal for that information to come in. Try and please kill my children. It just didn't come.
Alexa,
turn up TV to take them out of the room.
She's up there, fucking faggot, no off. Fucking boozy bitch.
A child feigning collapse or feigning illness, playing around on the floor, and within a matter of probably 10-20 seconds he was back up on his feet and into the room, laughing and joking as he was before.
2 weeks later, the couple were arrested over the deaths of their children. Mick Philpott played out much of the unfolding tragedy, as he had his life, in front of the cameras. Anne Widdecombe got to know Mick Philpott in 2007 when he took part in a show for ITV.
Hello, I'm Anne.
Hello, Anne. I'm Mick. Pleased to meet you all.
Mick Philpott loved celebrity. Loved being on television, even if he was being cast as the villain of the piece. He just loved it.
Mick Philpott has a wife, a girlfriend.
He had first courted the attention of the local media 2 years earlier when he had demanded a bigger council house for his wife, his mistress, and 9 of his 16 children.
Well, people could say it's my own fault for having so many kids. I say it's my life. I live the way I want to live it.
Unemployed and with the family claiming £25,000 a year in benefits, Mick Philpott was dubbed Britain's biggest scrounger by the national newspapers.
Today I want to discover the man behind the headlines and uncover the truth about the guy who has been branded Britain's biggest scrounger.
Appearances on Jeremy Kyle and This Morning followed as his notoriety grew.
But the papers are calling him Shameless Mick.
I think he was always very aware of PR and his image and what he wanted to portray.
You believe that you're being unfairly treated by the media?
I'm definitely being unfairly treated by the media.
He did not even try to see himself as others saw him.
Listen, you're going to criticise my family, pal, and my kids. I'll criticise you as much as I want.
Sorry,
this is a free country.
All that mattered was Mick Philpott.
Welcome to my world.
Mick Philpott thought he had it all. His wife Mairead and their children shared the house in Victory Road with Mick's lover, Lisa Willis, who can't be shown for legal reasons.
I'm happy. I've got my 2 wives here, which I say 2 wives, not 1, and I've got my kids and I've got my family. That's all I care about. Nothing else.
Don't say so then. Don't say so then.
Can I just get the, if I could get the distribution of children right?
I've
Is that
got
right?
3 with my first marriage.
Yeah.
2 with another young lady. 5 with Mairead.
Yeah.
4 with Lisa. And 1 with another young lady. And
Right.
2 on the way.
That's 15 now.
Plus-
There's 2 on the way.
Plus 1 when I was in the home services, which I've never met.
Get out.
Mick wanted to swap his 3-bedroom council house for a larger property. But Derby City Council wouldn't rehouse him, so he took his complaint to his local ITV station, believing it would embarrass the council into helping him.
I think I should be allowed a bigger property. Because I'm unemployed, I should be getting every bit of help from the council. Oh yeah, Derby City Council, blah, 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 will help Mr. Philpott as much as possible, right? What have I got to do to get somebody to actually listen? It's not my fault, because at the end of the day, it's down to the council to be able to sort us out. We're just going round in a vicious circle.
Derby City Council didn't give him the home he wanted, but Mick didn't let this interfere with his plans to have more children.
Where does it end then, Mick? Where does it end? At 25, 18, 19? What's going to happen?
Well, I don't see what's got to do with nobody else. How many kids I have? I can have as many as I want.
In February 2007, Mick's wife Mairead gave birth to his 17th child, Jaden. His lover, Lisa Willis, was heavily pregnant with his 18th child.
At this present moment, I am on cloud 9. I'm buzzing. Just had child number 17. I've soon come to child number 18. There's going to be a lot of people out there that's going to say, oh look, the scum, the stranger, the shameless Mick has done it again. Well, I'll tell you what, fuck all of you. Because at the end of the day, my life, my wife's life, Lisa's life, we do what we want. We don't care what you people think. At the end of the day, we're happy, so stuff the lot of it.
1 month later, Lisa went into labour.
Fucking gobsmacked.
Hello, love. Guess what? She's ever so big. Can't believe it. And you're right about it.
I thought I'd be as soon as she had it, like you normally do. Hours after.
Hey, and guess what? I got no abuse, I got no swearing, I got nothing from her.
Yeah, well, you're there for me now.
By spring 2007, there were 11 children living in the house at 18 Victory Road.
He keeps trying to tell me it's religious, but it's not religious. It's just read one part of the Bible. Go forth my children to multiply. That's what he's doing.
Hello,
Are you going to be more babies?
I fucking am.
No, but how old is he? He'll be pregnant in 6 months' time. Mick loved his kids. He'd built climbing frames in the back garden, trampoline, swimming pool. Dad didn't think they wanted.
Those lovely children, absolutely lovely, and so well behaved. There's so many in the house. And so well behaved children.
Oh, for goodness
It's just
sake.
adorable.
I haven't killed someone in the zoo.
Oh.
No, I mean, people criticise for having big families. We're not on our own. Loads of people around with big families. It's just that we're highlighted because we ask for a bigger house.
Once again, Mick invited round the local ITV crew,
Hello, Mick. Peter Ian from Central News.
hoping they would champion his bid for a larger home.
Good evening. He remains unemployed. He still lives with his wife and mistress, and he's still having children.
But his plan backfired.
Well, it's an extreme case of what's happening, I'm afraid, week in, week out. But people are standing up and saying that just when we can't think of any other word for it.
I think it's a load of shit. I think it's a load of fucking shit. I think it's a load of crap. Nothing said about the house being overcrowded in the house, is there? You know? I'm fucking annoyed. The fact is, I missed the most important part out. You know, we're living in cramped conditions. Right, I'll kick Lisa out of my house and let her move back into property on her own, which is going to cost them fucking much more money than what's going to cost me. You know?
Many did
you
they
can't
kill?
win. Fuck 'em.
4, I think.
I'll have some more babies.
Really? I'll have some more babies.
He wasn't going to work. Whatever happened, he was not going to work. He worked out a system whereby he could live at the expense of the rest of us, providing there were enough children and individuals in the house bringing in benefits. That was the sum total of it.
Why can't I get this, that and the other? It's not fair this country's going to pop right.
Hang on a minute. I've not said I can't get this, I can't get
You
that.
want a bigger house,
Listen, I'm going
don't
to tell you something, right?
He saw himself as wronged because he couldn't get a bigger house. He saw himself as somebody who was going to stand up and fight for that, and he liked to be in the public eye, and if he was in the public eye, then he thought this was a good thing.
I'm going to say to you in the council, fuck you all, because if the situation comes to the situation, I will build in my garden. And you can come round, the council come round and say, well, you've not had planning permission. Fuck your planning permission. I've not had planning permission to have all these kids in this house. So they're breaking the law. So it's going to work both ways. One way or the other, I will get what I want.
The cameras revealed a man who was determined to get his own way, no matter what. They also showed the darker side of a man who dominated and controlled the two women in his life.
He's going to speak. So you told her what to say as well?
I'll tell you what I'll say. Right? You lot are criticising us for being as a threesome. We don't do threesomes. Full stop. Right?
I thought it was absolutely bizarre, Mairead, Nick and Lisa all living together in one house.
Okay.
It's not something
Me
that I could do
what you want.
myself. But Mairead,
Fucking one's bad enough, like about one's too.
and Lisa was happy and Nick was happy with
I
it.
don't understand these fucking
What was
people.
birthday? Don't treat us any different. Alright, I'm married, so I've got his name. But you don't treat us any different.
Mairead married Mick in 2003.
It don't bother me that I'm not married. It don't bother me one bit. I mean, I was bribed to for God's sake.
Lisa was 19 and already 7 months pregnant with Mick's child on his wedding day.
Me, it was their day at the end of the day. But I didn't enjoy the night time because I was pregnant. I was due to drop.
I don't think for 1 minute he would have ever had Lisa if Mairead could have put her foot down with him. It would never have happened. But obviously
Lady Death knew what Mick wanted, and he wanted Lisa, so she put up with it.
You're happy with the way things have worked out, and the relationship with the threesome works okay.
It's not like a threesome, but yeah,
Are you happy to share it?
I'm happy the way it is.
You're happy to share it? Yeah. Fair enough. Just explain to me how, in your mind, this whole house thing works.
It works like a normal family. Well, there's 3 of us in the house, but it works like a normal family.
Where is the dignity in 2 20-year-old something women allowing a man twice their age to have sex with them? Explain to me. Is that not sexist?
No, he's not doing it behind my back.
He was your bridesmaid at your wedding!
Mick had a caravan by the side of the house where he slept each night, first with his wife, then his lover.
Now, normally, this caravan's rocking. It's out from knocking, because this is where it all happens. As you can see, this is a nice plastic king-size bed. This is where the action takes place. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say too much about it, but yeah. One night I'll have Mairead in here, and then next night I'll have these rooms.
I used to say to Lisa and Mairead, I don't know how you can live like this. It's disgusting what you're doing. But they used to sort of like laugh it off.
You don't find it strange when, of a Monday or Wednesday or whenever it is, he's in the caravan with Lisa?
Why do you think most people are pissed off with you?
Jealous.
Of what?
Me living with 2 girls.
That's all about it.
It all falls down to.
How do you choose who gets it?
I don't. I'll service both of them. If they both want it the same night, mate, I won't set one without doing it. So,
can I ask you another question? I'm going to answer this.
Go on, mate.
Do you have tweezers?
No.
Never had a tweezer?
No, you know that. I have, but not with these 2.
Mick's always been a player. From the day I know him, he's been a player.
I say if you're born with a dick between legs, not just to pee out of, so I'm going to use it. Just say like for instance, I went out, and there was some nice young lady, and she gave me the eye and a come on then. I knew she wanted it. I'd oblige, because I'm a red hot blooded male at the end of the day. And I'm not going to, I even know my wife, Kristen, I ain't going to turn it down.
We'd go out for a drink most weekends. We'd have a laugh, we'd have a joke. If there's a woman there who fancied, he wouldn't think twice of chatting her up, even though Lisa was there or Mairead.
Would you be happy, by the way, ladies, for wife number 3 to come into the world?
No, I don't think it would happen anyway.
But if it did, how would you feel?
It's not up to me, is it? At the end of the day, it's trousers.
If people want to criticise me, I'll criticise them. Because it's my life, my choice. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, there's thousands of men out there who would love to be in my position.
Mick Philpott had created a world in which his wife and lover were subservient to his needs and desires.
Why any man would want to stay with
When
2
Lisa
ladies?
broke away, Mick's world imploded. It was through the catalyst to a sequence of events that would end in the deaths of 6 of his children.
6 children.
Mick, I don't take the piss, Mick. I can't play very good.
Mick Philpott was portrayed in court as a man who expected to have everything his own way, especially in his dealings with women.
You're going to be an argument with me, bro, and you ain't going to win it. Believe me, you ain't going to win. You've got no idea what it's like when you have no self-control. You have no self-control.
It was a side to his character revealed in 2007 when he agreed to let Anne Widdecombe find him a job as part of a show for ITV.
This is my wife, Mairead.
Hello, Mairead.
This is going to sound strange. This is my second wife, Lisa.
Hello, Lisa. Have you got 2 wives? They don't allow it in this country.
Well, no, bro, I trust me 2 wives.
I see.
If the company don't like it, it's tough.
Right.
His attitude towards women was one of complete contempt. He always referred to women as bitch. Bitch this, bitch that.
Every bitch out there that's got children,
That's
what I'm going to do. All right, every woman.
Is that how you describe the lady?
These are my ladies.
Oh, but everybody else
What do you think about them?
He obviously regarded women as there to serve his purposes.
Wiggy!
Get a job! This shows you what a bitch you are, doesn't it? Job! You, useless, you are.
Yeah.
You're like the rest.
Yeah.
Because you're not working.
I was.
There were certainly moments when I stepped back, if you like, moments when I flinched away from him. You're a coward.
Let's do the couch, bitch. Let's fucking move it.
There was a pent-up anger there.
I have just... You're exactly the same as Jeremy Couch, so all that.
Oh dear.
You're all that. That's what I'm going to use.
To have everything his own way, especially in his dealings with women.
You're gonna be an argument with me, daughter, and you ain't gonna win it. Believe me, you ain't gonna win. You've got no idea what it's like when you have no self-control. You have no self-control.
It was a side to his character revealed in 2007 when he agreed to let Anne Widdecombe find him a job as part of a show for ITV.
This is my wife, Mairead.
Hello, Mairead.
This is gonna sound strange. This is my second wife, Lisa.
Hello, Lisa. Have you got two wives? They don't allow it in this country.
Well, no, but I class them as two wives.
I see.
If it comes down like it, it's done.
Right. His attitude towards women was one of complete contempt. He always referred to women as bitch. Bitch this, bitch that.
Every bitch out there that's got children who's looking at
that expression you just used?
That's what I'm going to use. All right, every woman.
Is that how you describe the ladies?
These are my ladies.
Oh, but everybody else is...
Why don't you shut your mouth and let me have my say?
He obviously regarded women as there to serve his purposes.
I am
Get a job.
I'm looking up to my kids.
Get a job.
Listen, this shows you what a bitch you are, doesn't it?
Get a job.
You useless. You are.
Yeah.
You're like the rest. Talk to that because you're not worth the attention.
There were certainly moments when I stepped back, if you like, moments when I flinched away from him. You're a coward.
Let's do the coward, bitch. Let's fucking move it.
There was a pent-up anger there. I have just...
You're exactly the same as Jeremy Couch, so all that.
Oh dear.
You're all that.
I think...
Go on, answer me question.
I just have, but you weren't listening.
Go on, answer again.
Mick had a violent history. For the women in his life who tried to escape his control, his temper could be deadly and terrifying. In 1978, Mick Philpott's teenage girlfriend ended their relationship. Mick responded with violence. He broke into his girlfriend's house in the early hours of the morning and stabbed her repeatedly. When her mother tried to intervene to protect her, she too was stabbed. Both women were lucky to escape with their lives. Mick was convicted of attempted murder and grievous bodily harm and sent to prison.
The violence that he was sentenced for in 1978 is an absolute definite warning of the type of person Philpott is and how very dangerous he is, especially to women in his life.
If I was a rapist, a kid molester, or a mass murderer, I'd understand, but I'm not. Something happened to me in 1978 which I've regretted all my life. I'm still paying for it. It was a spare the moment thing. Apparently if I'd have been in France, I'd have walked scot-free.
After his release, Mick started a new relationship and the couple had 3 children. But it wasn't to last. In 1995, he met 14-year-old Heather Keogh. Mick was 37.
I think his preference for younger, more vulnerable girls gives us quite a few clues about his personality and how he relates to the world and how he relates to women. He likes to have younger women that he can manipulate and control.
Heather became pregnant with the couple's first child, and they moved into the house on Victory Road. Heather says she became homesick and wanted to leave. Mick became angry, pinning her to...
So I'm sure that's what he says at the start, yeah, so... That's right, why you...
His release, Mick started a new relationship, and the couple had 3 children. But it wasn't to last. In 1995, he met 14-year-old Heather Keogh. Mick was 37.
I think his preference for younger, more vulnerable girls gives us quite a few clues about his personality and how he relates to the world and how he relates to women. He likes to have younger women that he can manipulate and control.
Heather became pregnant with the couple's first child, and they moved into the house on Victory Road. Heather says she became homesick and wanted to leave. Mick became angry, pinning her to the floor.
Nice job.
She was young, she was naive, it was an abusive relationship, he was very much in control.
He used to have black eyes and bruises and stuff. you know, you'd say, have you done that? You know, that looks a bit nasty, and or I've walked into the door, or done this silly hoovering and bent down there and bang it's hit me, and you know, really, he'd done it, do you know what I mean? And she was scared to say anything.
The abuse continued. More rows followed. Then one night in early 2000, Mick attacked her again.
I think Heather realised at that time that how bad things were. What was usual following arguments was he'd lock her outside in the back garden, and Heather's described how on previous times she'd actually just curl up around the outside toilet until he was ready to let her back in.
Go on, David, you're
But
right.
on this occasion, I think she realised that enough was enough. She actually fled from the address. She climbed over the fence to get away from him, and later went to the police station to report what happened.
What followed was a lengthy and bitter battle for residence of their 2 children. The court heard how Mick attempted to discredit Heather to get what he wanted, but he lost, and the children stayed with Heather. Within months, Mick had started a sexual relationship with 19-year-old Mairead Duffy, moving her into the house on Victory Road. The following year, she gave birth to Jade, her first child with Mick. Mairead was deeply in love with Mick, but by the new year, his interest had turned to 17-year-old Lisa Willis. Lisa was a single mum, and within weeks, he had invited her to come and stay.
I thought it was quite acting content with Mairead, but then I went to see him one day out of the blue, and Lisa was there, and I said, who's that? She said, you look at me. I said, oh, you got Mairead? She said, I got two.
What a fucking bomb stick.
In court,
Do the
Lisa
fuck once 2
revealed
weeks.
that early in their relationship, during an argument, Mick had beaten her with a piece of wood in front of her son.
Again, he's showing that he has ultimate control over Lisa, and a good beating, especially with a weapon, I mean, that not only says what kind of person he is, very willing to use violence, very dangerous, and it will tell her that, and that would absolutely reinforce that to her, that she needs to behave herself.
Both Mairead and Lisa were very violent. He could get angry very easily, and when he was angry, he would go very quiet and wouldn't barely say a word.
Realise? Yes, you are. Yeah, you might realise. In the bed. I'm happy with what I've got here. I've got 2 lovely women, and I've got 18 lovely kids, and I've got 11 of my own. Not many people outside.
2 lovely women and 18 lovely kids.
Thank you, money. So they've got what I've got. I'm happy. Football's on. Not allowed to football. It's not priority.
There was no doubt at all that Mr. Fox was completely in control. It was quite obvious that the whole household revolved around him and his needs and what he wanted.
He was the boss of the house. What he said goes. What he wanted, he had.
While it was Mairead and Lisa that went out to work, it was Mick who controlled the finances.
Like the girls used to go to work, and then they used to get whatever benefits they used to get. Everything had to go in Mick's bank account.
What are you getting in benefits? They didn't appear to know what happened to the money. They didn't appear to want to know what happened to the money. And what about the council tax? How much is that? Well, I expect he does. I was wondering if you did.
No, because I don't pay it. He pays it in.
He doesn't pay. You don't know what's coming in. You don't know what's going out.
We know what's going out because we pay it.
I've just asked you about rent and council tax. I'm not sure.
The girls never had a penny themselves. They wanted anything, they'd have to ask Nick for it. Like normally, you'd say, right, I'm going to town today to treat myself. There was never none of that. Or having your hair done, there was never none of that.
You know, that's right, hold on. You get out there and get
At least my wife's out working.
You go and get
At least my wife's out working.
Domestic abuse is now universally acknowledged to be made up of a pattern of behaviours. Certainly controlling behaviours like controlling access to money, isolating women from their friends and family, controlling their interaction with the outside world. All of these behaviours together actually are more dangerous than consistent violence.
Mick was happy, believing that he had everything he wanted with the two women in his life. But Lisa and Mairead's relationship wasn't always harmonious, and tensions were creeping into the house on Victory Road.
They did talk about each other behind each other's backs. They was jealous of one another.
Sometimes. I wish I had got married to Mairead, and in that way there wouldn't be the difference between Mairead and Lisa, which unfortunately there is.
He did suggest divorcing me to marry Lisa. So then Lisa would have his name then. But I don't want divorcing.
Why not?
People that have affairs do that.
It was always clear to me he felt more for Lisa than what he did for Mairead.
Lisa, out the two of them, she's got a bit more backbone and she stood up to him more.
He's worried about if we're going to drift apart. And drifting apart and the kids splitting up and that. I said, well, it won't be my doing if we do. I don't know. I mean, you have to wait and see, don't you?
I know, it's pretty sad, eh?
Mick admitted he had preferred Lisa, telling the court that he had treated her like his queen. But Lisa was growing increasingly tired of the relationship and life at 18 Victory Road.
He seemed to argue with Lisa more. There were 2 times I was there and he said, if you carry on you can get out and everything.
In February last year, Lisa Willis told Mairead she was taking her 5 children to the local swimming pool. She never came back.
I don't know what to do, I said, she must have a sixth sense. She always said the first one they'll leave will be Lisa. And she was right.
Now, the end is near. It was a bit low. He just said that Lisa had left him, she took the kid, she was coming back. You know, he started like filling up with tears over that. Because he loved Lisa. Everybody knew he loved Lisa.
He would have responded maybe in panic, but in a desperate need to get back the control he felt he had lost. Maybe in a rage that she had dared to leave him. But certainly there was always going to be some kind of exaggerated response.
There were increasingly bitter rows between the couple, and Lisa went to the courts to prevent Mick coming near her. The last time Mick had to fight for
What date's this?
It's Tuesday the 1st of December.
Determined that wouldn't be the case.
Victory Road, Blackpool, who fuck's that?
Is that your Paul?
Victory Road?
Your Paul stayed, no?
No.
Don't know.
Don't know. Victory Road?
Lisa and Mick escalated.
The Paul's almost Friday in there, doesn't he?
Mick comes off the phone and alleges that somebody's threatened to fire on his house. Different members of the force would call it differently, which is understandable. It's nearly a year ago now. But they're all clear that he alleges there's some sort of threat.
A few weeks later, when a neighbour came over, Mick claimed to have received a threatening text from Lisa.
I went round there 2 weeks before the fire had happened. And he just like sort of clapping his hands, oh, when I've got it now, when I've got it real up, threatening to burn me house up. I'll see him in court, I'll soon have my kids going.
I believe he's done that in order to support
Just put that last one staying on
He
TV.
knows what the plan is. He knows that
It
it's
was.
been set up.
Must have been on, yeah.
He needs
Oh,
to
right.
sow the seed in some people's heads as to who's responsible.
Mick was confident that his attempts to discredit Lisa were succeeding, and that he would soon have the children living with him.
The week leading to the fire, he was telling
It's that guy that was dubbed UK's biggest scrimger, but he ended up killing 6 of his kids.
5 children would start in school the following Monday.
You get 18 kids and they count 6 of them.
Set for the family court hearing. In the early hours of the morning, a fire broke out in the house on Victory Road.
Oh, right, Victory Road, right.
It was the culmination of Mick's plan, but it was fatally flawed. He failed to take into account the deadly speed with which fire and smoke can take hold.
Nobody in their right mind would set a fire inside their home and there were 6 children asleep upstairs. I can sum it up in 2 words: evil, stupid.
Right, this is the proper way you hoover up, right? You don't watch how the girls do it, right? Proper way of hoovering up.
Mick Philpott had created a world for himself with his wife, his lover, and their 11 children. A world that he controlled.
One way or the other, I will get what I want.
When Mick's lover Lisa Willis left, taking their children, he was prepared to do anything to win them back. But his carefully laid plans went tragically wrong.
Michael Philpott never expected the fire to end at Rashford. He thought it would be, I think, a very low-level crime, something that he would get away with.
18 Victory Road
East
had become a
Midlands.
crime scene.
Well, it can't be Victory Road in Blackpool, it must be, it's in East Midlands somewhere.
What caused the blaze? It became apparent to detectives that the parents couldn't be ruled out. The day of the fire was critical for Mick Philpott. He and Lisa were due in the family court.
Now, you've got this apparent coincidence of it starting actually in the early hours of the morning before they're all due at court. Now, I may be cynical in that part, but it's too much of a coincidence for me that that fire takes place on the morning that they're all going to court for a family hearing.
It's our belief that Michael's plan was to go to court that day, having discredited Lisa, and in the same scenario, he's actually made himself look like a hero and a victim at the same time, and he believed that would achieve his aim of getting the children back.
As detectives began to piece together the events of that night, they began to question the Philpott's account.
So we killed 6 of the children to get the all children back.
Mick told police that he had spent the evening at home playing snooker with a friend, Paul Mosley. Mairead had sex with both men, with Mosley claiming he left around 1:30 in the morning. The couple then went to bed in the conservatory where they usually slept.
Michael and Mairead both claimed that they were having a cuddle in bed, having fallen asleep after watching television, and that they were woken by the alarm.
On hearing the alarm, they said that they went through the kitchen and opened the door into the lounge. But what they did when they saw the fire raised questions for the police.
From their own account, they found the fire, turned round, and gone through the kitchen, past 2 fire extinguishers, a sink with water in. They've done nothing to actually look at the fire and to decide, can they fight it, can they put it out, can they rescue the children?
The fire had been started with petrol, and unchecked, it spread rapidly, sending smoke up to the bedrooms where the children were sleeping.
Anything made from petroleum products is going to give off large amounts of thick, black, acrid smoke. There'll be a lot of carbon monoxide in there, a lot of cyanide in there, various different toxic gases. Anybody up there is going to be breathing in those gases.
Mairead went out of the back of the house and called 999. Mick claimed that he went to find a ladder, using it to get up to the back of the house where he tried to break the window.
The ladder was already, if not up at the window, certainly in position, and the plan was that he would go up that ladder, he would open that window, and he would rescue all 6 children from that bedroom.
But by the time neighbours Darren and Jamie Butler arrived on the scene, the dramatic rescue plan had gone badly wrong.
The whole demeanour of Mick and Mairead was wrong. Yeah, from start to finish. It was like it was all set in their particular way.
Well, no,
Ladders there and...
The emergency services were quickly on the scene. When they asked Mick where the children were, he told them repeatedly that the children were in the back bedroom. He had also said this to the 999 operator.
In the front or the back bedroom. All of them, yes.
We believe that is part of his plan, and that somehow the children were going to be in the back bedroom where he could rescue the children and make sure they escaped from the fire.
But if there was a plan for the children to gather in one bedroom, it had failed. Officers found the children still in their beds, where they had been overcome by the smoke. They were laid out in front of the house, where the emergency services worked desperately to save them.
Mick made an attempt to get to the children, you know, and he got through to one of his children, kissed one of his children on the head, and then got up and went across the road to his neighbour's house to see how his wife was doing. You know, everything was wrong. It was wrong.
Mick's strange behaviour was beginning to attract attention. The couple's son, Dwayne, was critically ill. He was transferred from the local hospital to a specialist unit 37 miles away in Birmingham. But when hospital staff arranged for the couple to go with him, Mick refused.
Michael had initially said that he wouldn't go because he got to his call that day for custody of the 5 children he'd had the police arrest. He went for a coffee. He just didn't seem anxious or concerned really. And in the end, officers actually were quite clear and told the both of them that they'd have to go.
If that was me, my child's in intensive care fighting for his life, I want to spend as much time with him as possible, and I don't want to leave his side. But that weren't the case. They was more interested in running around the hospital, having sneaky chats with Paul Mosley, and
He was doing things that a normal human being wouldn't do. Me and Sharon was like walking down the hallway and he was behind us, and all of a sudden he shouts, Mick, and I turn around and he's grabbing this woman's bum and saying, this is what I like, and I just turn around and I think, you just lost the kids, mate, how can you go on like that?
Clean out the gun again.
Thing, it was fake. And not once did he say, can anyone help me in finding who started the fire at my house? He was too busy thinking Tom, Dick and Harry. Excuse me a minute.
It was false. That was crocodile tears.
In an attempt to understand the Philpotts' bizarre behaviour, the police secretly recorded them. The couple were in a police van together when Mick was heard asking Mairead if she was sticking to the story.
We believe at one point he said, I didn't mean to do it on my life. And he's also said to her, I was sticking with the story because if you want me to, I'll blab about it.
As the investigation progressed, traces of petrol additives were found on the clothes of the Philpotts and the friend who was with them at the house that night, Paul Mosley. Mick and Mairead Philpott, along with Paul Mosley, were charged with the manslaughter of their 6 children. In June last year, under dull grey skies, 6 coffins were carried to St Mary's Church in Derby. Crowds gathered to pay respect to the 6 young lives lost in the fire. Only the parents, Mick and Mairead Philpott, were absent.
I apologise to that guy. I apologise to him for not saving his kids. Do you know what that did to me? That ripped me right open. Right down the middle.
Today at Nottingham Crown Court, Mick and Mairead Philpott and Paul Mosley were found guilty of the manslaughter of the Philpotts' children. Dwayne, Jade, John, Jack, Jesse and Jaden.
I've never dealt with a case as sad as this, so there isn't a winner in this by any stretch of the imagination. All we've done is really try to just seek some justice for 6 children who are no longer with us, that were on the cusp of their lives, and hopefully we've got justice for those 6 poor kids.
Fucking psycho, eh? before, so.
It's loud.
Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face while you're sleeping. We've all seen some statue or the other during our lives that have been well known due to some historical or political importance, such as the infamous Statue of Liberty. But the statues we'll look at today are well known for almost coming to life and moving. So, without further ado, let us look into 10 times mysterious statues were caught on camera moving. Number 10. The creepy antique doll. Not much is known about this clip, except for the fact that it was uploaded to YouTube and various other websites. Therefore, it's extremely difficult to know when the original video was actually taken and posted. But that doesn't take away from its creepiness. As the video plays, a composite doll comes into view, which is a kind of doll that was made before the 1940s. It's basically a doll that's made up of tightly packed sawdust, which in time gives it this creepy, cracked skin vibe. What's even weirder is that during the video, the doll can be clearly seen moving its arms. So, is this a real haunted doll, or is someone out there just messing with us?
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and you'll get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works.
Number 9. The Spinning Pharaoh. There's always something a tad mysterious when it comes to ancient Egypt and anything related to it. What we mean is that everything about it always seems to revolve around curses. For example, the Pharaoh curse, the tomb curse, you see what we're getting at? So, when an ancient Egyptian statue in the Manchester Museum started to move on its own, people immediately started thinking that the statue was cursed. In the video taken, you can see a small 10-inch statue turning on its own, apparently wanting to turn away from the visitors that kept looking at it. Employees at the museum thought that the statue was moving on its own, so they set up a time-lapse camera to film it. People automatically assumed that it was a mysterious curse that was causing the statue to turn, but this isn't actually the case. It's actually just vibration from foot traffic and vehicle traffic that's making it turn. You see, the bottom of the statue is not entirely flat, but rather is a bit convex, making it susceptible to vibration. An investigation into the matter showed that the statue only turns during times of heavy foot and vehicle traffic, which is during the day, and stops moving at night. Number 8. The Moving Jesus. This statue of Jesus was reported to have moved during one religious activity in Mexico. This particular statue was depicted to be carrying his cross. Like many other similar statues, it was looking down. However, in this case, he probably got tired of standing in such a posture for a long time and decided to stretch his neck a bit by tilting his head up. And it was all captured on video. But there might be a rational explanation for this stuff. According to what we read, statues like these are often made in separate sections and then put together. Is it possible that the head shifted its position because it wasn't securely attached to the body? Or could it also be a miracle? Who really knows? Number 7. The Talking Buddha. After a service at a Buddhist center, over 100 members were lining up to meet Tong Chu, the abbot of the center, when they saw something that they would remember for the rest of their lives. A handful of the Buddha statues in the Pujao Service Center of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, were seen moving their limbs, blinking, moving their chests and hands, and giving off light. This strange occurrence took place for about an hour, Now, it's one thing to see one statue failing at what it's basically made to do, which is not to move. But several of them at once is a totally different breed of strange. Witnesses said they first saw one statue's lips move, and its chest also moved as though it was breathing. Then, other statues started moving their lips, and some kept blinking and even moved their fingers up and down. Let us know what one is to do during such a strange event. Apparently, you whip out your phone and start taking videos. Number 6. The Blinking Snow White.
You look at coffee and that one, or not?
The original video was posted on YouTube way back in 2011, which was taken from the footage of some news program in Mexico. The place was called Reno Mexico, which was an abandoned amusement park located in Veracruz, Mexico. The park was reported to be cursed, which was the reason for its closure and eventual abandonment. Anyway, the footage was taken by a group of urban explorers that seemed to have a particular taste for creepy places. And believe me, Reno Mexico is one creepy place. The group was taking videos of what was supposed to be Snow White and the 7 dwarf statues, which are, of course, completely not backed by Disney. One of the explorers suddenly showed a particular interest in the rip-off Snow White statue and started zooming in on its face. At this point, it seems that the statue felt quite uncomfortable being filmed by some stranger, so it let the guy know how she was really feeling by blinking her eyes. Of course, this sent the explorers screaming and running in terror for their lives. But then again, who wouldn't after being part of such a crazy thing? Number 5. The Crying Mary. When it comes to legendary movie religious icons, Jesus wins by a landslide. The internet is littered with videos allegedly showing various statues of Jesus moving on as they please. And we don't know whether this is some odd coincidence, but most of these moving Jesus statues belong to Mexico. In any case, most of them look fake, so they're not worth mentioning or don't bother getting attraction. But what is worth mentioning is the case of the Crying Mary. That's right. Hundreds of Virgin Mary statues all over the world have been reported to be doing stuff that they're not supposed to do. Like we said earlier in this video, moving, or in their case, crying. Quite like this statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico that has been seen to cry oily tears that, oddly, smells of roses. Some of the tears have been collected to be analyzed, but there are no reports of the results just yet. Or this one statue of Mary that's been reported to cry tears of blood in the Philippines. Though it's true that quite a few of these supposedly crying statues have been discovered to be fake, there are still quite some of them that remain unexplained. Number 4. The Thirsty Ganesha. A while back in India, the price of milk skyrocketed. Now, you might think it was because of something economical or faulty production, but it was all because of a statue of a Hindu god that all of a sudden decided it was thirsty and drank milk. The statue of Ganesha, which is the Hindu god of prosperity and new beginnings, can be seen in this video being spoon-fed with milk. And surprisingly, you can also see the milk vanishing from the spoon and seemingly being sucked into the mouth of the statue without any spilling. As India is quite the hotbed for fake miracle workers and fake prophets, the miracle has come under some scrutiny, and the phenomenon is still being studied as of this day. But the chances of it being fake are quite large, honestly, but until it's proven, you'll never really know. Number 3. The Sai Baba statue. Apparently, Sai Baba is to the Hindus what Jesus Christ is to the Christians. He was a teacher or spiritual messiah of sorts that was first rebuked and hated because of his teachings, and then later gathered a massive following because of those same teachings, as well as his followers grew exponentially in the millions prior to his death in 1918. He was known to perform a lot of miracles during his time. He spent most of his life in isolation in an abandoned mosque, where he kept a bonfire burning day and night. In any case, his miracles didn't end after his death apparently, as there was a statue of Sai Baba apparently moving its arms so much so that the flower wreath draped around its neck fell off. And with that, it's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by one of our subscribers, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it on over to us. We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2. The image that you see before you is that of the Statue of Liberty. The only weird thing about this is that the hand that holds the torch is no longer in its usual resting place. Instead of being held up high, the hand is almost at a 90-degree angle, implicating that the statue may be alive and well. Number 1. The underwater statues of Cancun. The underwater statues in the Cancun Underwater Museum of Art are alive, but not in a way you would think. Besides being a cool diving spot, these underwater statues actually have a much more noble purpose. They were sunk to create an artificial reef for fish and other underwater wildlife to call their home. In fact, most of the statues already have some sort of aquatic life clinging onto them, making them technically alive and constantly on the move. Well, that concludes our list of the 10 times mystery statues were caught on camera moving. Let us know in the comment section below which one of...
Terrifying turn of the head, The Exorcist spawned a new breed of horror film.
I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to tell my mother?
Audiences kept repeating, it's only a movie.
People were vomiting, you know, it was just this intense, visceral reaction to the film.
Yet each bone-chilling scene pulled them deeper into the belly of the beast.
I ain't emptied my coat. My face like that.
Seeing the movie was an emotional assault. Making the movie was pure hell. She was just yelling, stop, stop, stop.
People on the set were starting to get a little freaked out.
There was a great feeling that bad things were happening. I got the sense that the devil was going to get me.
3 decades and 3 sequels later, the demon surfaced again. And so did the bizarre happening.
I'm coming from a restaurant, walking across the crosswalk, and a car comes from another stopped car, hits me, almost kills me.
Coincidence or the work of the devil? Judge for yourself, if you dare. Curse of the Exorcist, the true Hollywood story. On August 20th, 2004, Exorcist the Beginning opened in theaters across America. The supernatural thriller is a prequel to what has been called the scariest movie of all time, The Exorcist, released in 1973. Exorcist the Beginning tells the story of Father Merrin, the elderly priest who performed the exorcism in the original film. In the beginning, young Merrin faces the devil for the first time. Exorcist the Beginning is the latest chapter in a pop culture phenomenon that began in 1971 with the publication of William Peter Blatty's chilling novel, The Exorcist. The book, about an innocent girl possessed by a demon, sold more than 13 million copies in the United States alone.
It was exciting, and I think it was also comforting in a strange way to a lot of Americans.
Here is ultimate good, represented by these heroic priest exorcists that Blatty so graphically portrays in his novel.
2 years later, the screen version of The Exorcist became one of the highest-grossing films of the 70s and one of the most eerily troubled productions in Hollywood history.
It was the kind of movie, when the movie was finished, all you wanted to do is leave the movie business and never have anything to do with the movie business again.
The Exorcist was no ordinary scarefest. In fact, the movie hit a profound nerve in the national psyche.
I can't even describe it. It's so horrible.
I didn't set out to scare the hell out of people, as you do with a horror film. I set out to make a film that would make them think about the concept of good and evil.
But there was something even more disturbing about The Exorcist.
The reason it was a stunner was that Bill Blatty did his homework. Blatty researched it. He based it on a real situation, a historical, factual situation about a boy who was possessed.
Flashback 24 years to a winter's day in 1949. The place, Cottage City, Maryland, a quiet community outside Washington, D.C. The victim, a 13-year-old schoolboy whose name was never revealed. The boy's nightmare began gradually with a series of strange, seemingly inexplicable occurrences.
The mother and father are out one night. The grandmother and the boy hear sounds in the walls. It sounds like scratchings in the walls. When the mother and father come home, they tell them, and the father calls in a exterminator, thinking that it's rats in the walls or mice in the walls. Well, there isn't any rat, there isn't any mouse.
No one knew it at the time, but the bizarre event known as a possession was taking hold.
The 3 stages of diabolical activity are infestation, oppression, and possession. The first stage, infestation, is usually the beginning when the demonic start to interact with the physical world in connection with the family. You might get whisperings, you might hear small animals.
And then the boy is in bed one night. This is all happening rapidly over a short period of time. And he feels his bed starting to move. This is observed by the mother and father and the grandmother.
The parents of the young teenager made an emergency call to their Lutheran minister.
According to the pastor's testimony of this, he puts the boy on the floor and a mattress. The mattress moves, goes bangs into the under part of the bed, and the next morning the pastor says, this is beyond me. And he tells the father and mother, this is something the Catholics understand. You've got to go to a priest.
For people who aren't Catholic, other religious denominations, even no religion at all, by the time they're looking to seek help, as far as it being demonic possession, they don't really care who they're going to get their help from. They just want it.
The family took their minister's advice and contacted a Catholic priest at St. James Church in nearby Mount Rainier, Maryland. The priest took the report very seriously.
The priest then checks the boy into Georgetown University Hospital and confides in some people in the hospital as to what he's going to do. And he starts the exorcism. There are stories about what happens next. The boy, although he's strapped down, manages to reach under the bed, break off a piece of the inner string, and slash the priest's arm. The priest screams. He has a cut on his arm that goes up to his elbow, and he ends the exorcism.
The boy's family became desperate.
They wound up relocating from the Washington, D.C. area to St. Louis, and at St. Louis University they were able to make contact with a Jesuit.
His superior sent him to the Archbishop of St. Louis, who is very reluctant to engage in exorcism. But he does, with reluctance, okay, the exorcism. It's very simple. It's just a series of prayers, at that time said in Latin, and it's repetitious. It really just says, I'm the priest, I'm representing Jesus Christ, and in the name of Jesus Christ, I'm telling you to get out of that victim. And then it's supposed to happen. It doesn't happen.
there were apparently horrific demonic fireworks, terrific demonic grotesquerie, howlings from beyond the grave, carvings on the boy's flesh, spinning heads, terrible, disturbing, frightening, grotesque phenomena. All this stuff was faithfully recorded in diary that these Jesuit priest exorcists took.
And this goes on for a total of about 6 weeks. In Easter itself, the boy is more violent than he had been in a long time.
The third stage, actually, possession, is self-explanatory. The demon has, in fact, broken down the curse's will sufficiently to possess that person's body.
With no hope in sight, the boy's parents almost gave up.
On the Monday after Easter, there is the sound of an explosion. Everyone says it sounded like a gunshot. And everyone who hears it senses that it has to do with the boy in the room. And when they go into the room, the boy is sitting up in bed, big smile on his face, and he says it's gone. And it was all over.
Not for long. A local journalist caught wind of the strange incident and wrote it up in the Washington Star.
He broke the story in the evening paper, and then the Washington Post said, well, we've got to have a story too. And they went after it, and it was a larger story. In 1949, Peter Blatty was an undergraduate at Georgetown University in Washington. He starts to think, wow, this is something I'm going to keep for a while. It was a sensational story.
Blatty filed the article away and continued his studies. In 1951, he joined the Air Force. Soon after that, Blatty started to write, but he specialized in laughs, not screams.
He's been a very well-known writer in the film business. I'm not sure whether this was his first novel or not, but yeah, he was an important writer at that time.
Blatty made a good living cranking out comedies like the Pink Panther classic A Shot in the Dark. But by 1967, audiences grew tired of slapstick.
Comedy had fallen into decline in the motion picture business. And I said, oh, fine, I'm a writer. I can write anything. Put me up for this, that. I couldn't get any serious assignment. Why did he a comedy writer? Now, I mean, off the wall, farce is what I was best known for. And so I thought, well, I have nothing else to do other than go down to the unemployment office every week. I think I'll write that novel I've been thinking about so many years.
Blatty decided to pen a new kind of story, based on the clippings he saved nearly 2 decades earlier. The 39-year-old writer then got in touch with one of the priests who assisted in the 1949 exorcism in Maryland.
Blatty gets a letter back from Father Bowden, which I've seen, in which Father Bowden says, I can't tell you anything about this. Preserve don't identify the boy. But he said, I'll tell you one thing about it. It was the real thing. So Blatty changes the victim from a boy to a girl.
At a party on New Year's Eve, 1967, William Blatty
changed
met an
back to
executive
white.
from Bantam Books and told him the extraordinary tale of a child possessed by Satan.
The eye
When the
sockets.
sun rose on 1968, Blatty had a handshake deal to write the novel that changed the face
And then
of
I had-
movie horror forever.
We'll be going on to
Coming up,
the next one.
lights, camera, pea soup.
Anything he did to me was uncomfortable. I mean, they plastered my face in every direction.
And later,
Was a great feeling that bad things were happening during the making of the movie.
In 1949, a real-life exorcism made headlines in a small Maryland town. 20 years later, writer William Peter Blatty cut a deal to document the bizarre incident in a chilling book. In 1971, The Exorcist was published, but sales were slow. Then, Blatty appeared as a last-minute guest on the Dick Cavett Show. Within a week, The Exorcist hit the bestseller list and stayed there for 55 weeks.
Here comes Blatty with his book, seemingly out of the blue. And he was bringing us to a more medieval kind of reality. And he was saying, look, there is supernatural evil. There is diabolical evil. It's afoot in the land.
The Exorcist became a national sensation, and execs at Warner Brothers quickly snatched up the film rights. Blatty made certain he was on board to do more than just write the script.
William Peter Blatty was a really clever guy. When it came time to do the film, he made sure that he would be the producer and therefore be able to exert some level of control over the production.
Well, it's very unusual for a screenwriter to, to get, free donuts and coffee, much less come aboard as producer. But Blatty had written the book, and so he had a little bit more leverage.
While Blatty revamped his novel for the big screen, studio execs searched for the right director. Stanley Kubrick, Arthur Penn, and Peter Bogdanovich all dismissed the assignment as run-of-the-mill horror schlock. Finally, William Friedkin, the Oscar-winning director of The French Connection, said yes.
Bill Blatty, who I had known socially for a number of years, sent me his novel. I opened the book. I had a dinner engagement, and I opened up the manuscript. I never went out to dinner. I just read it straight through, and I thought, this is fantastic. And I called him and told him, and he said, would you like to make a movie on it? And I said, absolutely.
In the spring of 1972, Friedkin and Blatty started hunting for the perfect cast. Max von Sydow was tapped for the crucial role of Father Merrin. The respected Swedish actor was only 42 years old, but Friedkin and Blatty felt he had the right combination of dignity and fire to bring the elderly priest to life. To play the mother of the possessed child, the studio wanted an A-list actress.
Specifically, they wanted for that role either Anne Bancroft, who was a major star then, Jane Fonda also, or Audrey Hepburn.
But Bancroft and Hepburn were not available.
And then it was offered to Jane Fonda, who read it, and whose response was, and remember now, this was the early 70s, Jane Fonda said, why would I want to appear in a piece of capitalist horse like this?
39-year-old Ellen Burstyn had a very different reaction to the script. Burstyn was fresh off an Oscar nomination for her performance in The Last Picture Show, and that honor got Friedkin's attention. Burstyn got the job. A short time later, Friedkin caught a performance of That Championship Season, a stage drama written by 33-year-old Jason Miller. Miller also starred in the play. And though he'd never acted in front of the camera, Friedkin liked Jason's intensity. Miller was cast in the part of the younger priest, Father Karras. Only one major role remained, Regan McNeil, the young girl possessed by the devil. But finding an actress who could portray both innocence and evil was tough.
Juliet Taylor, the casting director, had winnowed through hundreds of New York City school children. We were not looking for an actress. We did not want a Hollywood child. We wanted a real child.
Then, a 12-year-old film and TV veteran named Linda Blair showed up.
I read originally for the casting director, and the dialogue for a child was extreme. And I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to tell my mother? So I didn't.
We finally got it down to 3, and at that point, Billy and I interviewed the girls, and I have only a vague recollection of that, except that my conclusion was, and certainly his, was that she projected the stability and the wholesomeness and the optimism and the normalcy that we wanted for this girl.
When I met Linda, I knew instantly that she was pulled together enough and bright enough and intelligent enough to deal with this material.
I didn't grow up Catholic. I didn't know about the devil. That's the safety net for why I was chosen to do the character, I think, because it was nothing ever than a monster for me.
With the cast in place, Friedkin focused on the supernatural special effects needed to transform a young girl into a demon.
I come in for a conference, and he shows, the first thing he does practically is show me a picture of Linda Blair. And here's this cute little 12-year-old girl with a chubby face and everything. And I had already learned what the basic story is. And I think, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? How can I change this into a believable little monster?
Special effects man Marcel Vercouter believed the exorcism scenes needed to be frightening and brutal.
Billy, I said, I'm going to be the devil, right? That's who I am. I'm the unseen devil. And I said, I wouldn't do that. I said, I'd pick that little gal up and just thrash her, you know. And really? And I said, well, you know, why fool around? He said, okay, whatever you want to put in there, in that bedroom scene, you got it. And I says, okay, thank you. So that's the way we went to New York.
Vercouter and Dick Smith flew to Manhattan for makeup and special effects tests.
This was 3 months before filming was to start. So, I immediately started designing several makeups to test. And the first one I did was pretty extreme.
It wasn't like the first test, we said that's it, move on. We choose a test, look at it, and say that doesn't work, and for this reason, yada, yada, yada. And so Dick would go back to the drawing board and he'd come up with something new.
I have found that covering up her brow, building them just a slight bit, removing the eyebrow, and it gave her more of a skeletal look and with more foreboding, and yet it looked very subtle because it looked totally natural.
When I was first introduced to Dick Smith, of course, I had no idea who this man was, nor did I care. Anything he did to me was uncomfortable. I mean, they plastered my face in every direction. First, it was almost a full mask, and Billy Friedkin said, no, I have to be able to know that it's her. Dick made these tiny pieces that just covered different parts of my face. And as he said, to take a so-called like a cherubic face and to make it into something very evil.
Smith and Vercouter collaborated to create the infamous Linda Blair dummy, which made the impossible seem plausible.
He did his thing and I did my thing, and they both came together.
12-year-old Linda Blair required more than just a stunt dummy, however. Friedkin enlisted 21-year-old actress Eileen Dietz to double for Blair in some of the more graphic and physically challenging exorcism scenes.
And this was on a principal contract, and they specifically spoke to me at that time about just shooting the, as we called it, the abuse of the cross sequence, the masturbation sequence.
Dietz threw herself into the role of the possessed girl.
First of all, they were testing me to see if I could do it, and then they were testing special effects. I just kind of remember going into this outer world, and it's like, Mommy, please, but you Sally, please, you Sal. You know, which is actually isn't in the movie. You never see the two of them. But I had a ball.
Finally, in July 1972, The Exorcist was ready to roll with a modest $5 million budget and an impossible 85-day production schedule.
We knew going in that it was going to go longer than scheduled and be more expensive than scheduled. It was an unspoken word, but we knew, everybody knew.
Coming up, coincidence or curse?
And then he hits and he goes all the way to the bottom. And every time he turned over, the blood came out.
By summer 1972, director William Friedkin assembled an all-star cast and crew to shoot The Exorcist. Yet nothing prepared these Hollywood veterans for what lay ahead. Just days before film rolled on The Exorcist, writer-producer William Blatty stepped in. Blatty thought his friend, Father William O'Malley, was perfect for the small but pivotal role of Father Dyer.
We were looking for a genial doofus priest, and I walked into the part like a hand into a surgeon's glove. They couldn't have done better, I don't think. I mean, if they're looking for somebody who is incredibly airheaded but smart, how about that?
Friedkin came out of documentary filmmaking, gritty, true, realistic, authentic. And I suspect for him, having the real priest in the film was a way for him to add sort of local color to the film.
Friedkin didn't stop there. He took one look at the soundstage on West 54th Street, and heads rolled.
We took a walkthrough, and by the time we finished this walkthrough, Billy fired the production designer and the set decorator and hired 2 new people who lived in California.
4 weeks and $200,000 later, shooting finally began on The Exorcist. The date, August 29th, 1972. Friedkin demanded that the first frames sizzle.
And we're already like a month behind. We haven't shot anything at all. The first shot, we're going to see an egg break next to some bacon. And the camera's going to pull back, start the shot. Egg breaks. The bacon is not straight on the grill. And Billy says, I want straight bacon. I don't want the bacon to curve. The prop man goes out in the neighborhood to find bacon without preservatives and bring it back so that they can have the bacon. I don't know how many hours it took for that to occur, and that was the beginning of the making of the movie.
The beginning of The Exorcist curse wasn't far behind. In early September, actor Jason Miller took his 3 children to a local beach, but their day of fun quickly turned tragic when Miller's 5-year-old son Jordan was hit by a motorcycle. The boy's legs were crushed. Jordan was admitted to a local hospital in critical condition. Meanwhile, production on The Exorcist continued. A few days after the accident, director William Friedkin called an impromptu meeting between Miller and Father O'Malley to discuss some heavy scenes. But Jason had other things on his mind. His son.
Here it is, something like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Billy gives us Jack Daniels. And so I'm sipping this Jack Daniels, and Miller is sloshing this Jack Daniels. And Billy excuses himself to take a phone call. And Jason really got sauced, or appeared to be. And he started to cry. And I put my arm around him and let him cry.
Oh, that eye.
And all of a sudden I heard Billy Friedkin at the door saying, oh, Jesus, if only I had a camera. Because we were playing out that scene. He'd set us up.
Miller's son remained in critical condition for 10 days. Then, he made a sudden, miraculous recovery. Still, the accident casts an ominous shadow over the production.
Some weird things had been happening on the sets, and people were getting really spooked about the film they were working on.
In October 1972, the company traveled to Washington, D.C. Several scenes were filmed at Georgetown University, a Jesuit college founded in 1789. Father Thomas King taught theology at the school.
When they first came, I remember they were in general spooked out. And that they thought the devil was after them to try to make them stop making the movie. So anyway, I remember that Blatty asked me,
What did you do too bad?
As we're ready to start filming. I said, yes, I'll do that. And then he said, how long will it take? I said, 8 minutes. They wanted everything precise. So I said, 8 minutes. I remember then giving a blessing there and sprinkling everybody with holy water for a while. That was the blessing that we gave as they started filming in town.
The exterior of the fictional McNeil house was also shot on location in Georgetown.
They took the house and they didn't make it look like it could be a haunted house. It didn't look haunted at all, just it's a very square, ordinary shape. And but they made their little additions and it looked very different.
Friedkin's perfectionism knew no bounds, especially when it came to one of the movie's most famous moments, the arrival of Father Merrin.
I got it all lit up, and he said we were ready, and Billy came to the set, and he looked up at the window, and he said, you can't have the shade open, you gotta have the shade closed on the window. And I said, how can I close the shade and see a shaft of light coming out of it? And he basically said, that's your problem, you work it out, but this is what I want.
The cast and the rest of the crew went home for the night. leaving Roisman and his team to come up with a solution.
We actually took the sash of the window with the window frame and moved it back a few feet away from the window and put it on a separate platform, and then took an arc light and put it on another platform alongside it,
Man,
and shone that through the open window frame now. It took some creative thinking, but it worked great.
Mrs. McNeil, I'm Father Merrin. Thank you.
The scene where Father Merrin arrives happened to be Max von Sydow's first day of work.
Is Father Karras here?
Yes.
Father?
He's here already.
Father Karras. It's an honor to meet you, Father. I'm very tired. I'd like you to go quickly across the residence and gather up the castle for myself. Your surplices, purple stone, and some holy wine. And your copy of the Roman ritual, the large one. I believe we should begin.
The very next morning, however, von Sydow received some horrible news. His brother died unexpectedly in Stockholm. Von Sydow caught the next flight back to Sweden. The curse of the exorcist was gathering force. In the movie, Father Karras battles the demon inside of Reagan, leading to the shocking climax filmed on the 100-foot stairway
Fix that eye.
Prospect Avenue to the Georgetown waterfront.
I've started too far out there. I need to come in a bit there. Bit there.
Come into me. I don't know why you insisting on this or that. Like that, guys. The other eye looks great because it gives it the depth.
Oh, the other eye I've just fixed.
The other eye looks like you've been poked with a shovel.
For the dangerous scene in which Father Karras plunges to his death, Marcel Vercoutier rigged the stuntman with special care.
They took a big plastic bag, I taped it to his back, and I filled the whole thing with blood. The whole bag. And lined 90-some steps with half-inch foam rubber. And then he took a run, and then they had the shot where he's in midair. And then he hits and he goes all the way to the bottom. And every time he turned over, the blood came out. Going. And when he landed at the bottom, he was just perfectly right.
Still, Friedkin wanted more. The scene continued at the bottom of the steps, where Father Dyer gives Father Karras the last rites.
Do you want to make a confession?
And we stop and go into the camper and drink Irish coffee. And so here I am talking to this guy. I've just given the last rites 5 times and drinking Irish coffee with him, which is an unusual situation. After about an hour, we go back out and we do the whole thing again with the camera over there.
Are you sorry? Are you sorry for having offended God? Of all the sins of your past life.
So finally, Billy comes over to me and says, Bill, he says, you're just doing it by the numbers. I said, Billy, I've just given my best friend the last rites 15 times in one night, and it's now 2:30 in the morning. He says, I understand. So he said, you trust me? Well, you always trust somebody until they ask you. I said, Billy, I trust you. Wham! Right across the face. And he backed out of the shot, and I went in there, and if you look at the scene, or if it's actually printed, my hand's going like that. That's not me. That was the adrenaline caused by that devil preaching. He'd do anything to get a shot.
Coming up, The Exorcist goes up in flames.
Working on that film, it's like taking a trip to hell and living to tell about it.
By winter 1972, location shooting of The Exorcist wrapped in Georgetown, but production was way behind schedule. Back at the soundstage in New York City, cast and crew prepared for the film's most crucial scenes, including the terrifying exorcism. Shortly before Christmas 1972, the Vatican newspaper published a special section devoted exclusively to the devil. In the piece, Pope Paul VI reaffirmed Satan's presence on earth. Director William Friedkin tried to charm the devil out of his increasingly anxious team.
There were all of these things going on where people on the set were starting to get a little freaked out about the film, and it was beginning to interfere, with the work process, with the production.
By January 1973, the atmosphere on the New York soundstage grew even more tense.
There was a great feeling that bad things were happening during the making of the movie.
Even I got the sense that, I'm fooling around with something here. The Lord's going to get me here. The devil's going to get me or something like that. It was a lot of head stuff that you put in your own mind.
Vercatere's fear quickly became reality. Actor Jack McGowan played movie director Burke Dennings in the film. His character dies after a violent encounter with a possessed Reagan. Just 2 weeks after McGowan finished his scenes, he met his own untimely death from influenza. He was only 54 years old.
Reaching back to black to fix that eye.
In any way. Certainly a hell of a lot of things happened.
Then, according to several members of the cast and crew, a terrible blaze incinerated one of the sets.
The Curse of the Exorcist, you couldn't ask for a movie that could generate more rumors. All I know is that there was one fire, which was real.
More than 3 decades later, the alleged fire remains open to debate.
There wasn't a fire. There wasn't any symptom of a fire. One night or one day or something, one of the 4-aught cables or something started to get hot and it smoked.
I did not see the things that other people maybe saw. The fact that we had an electrical short that caused the set to burn down is not uncommon when you work for a very long period of time, in this case, a year on a set.
I never saw any fire myself.
One thing is certain. There were no flames in the film's most chilling scenes, the possession of Reagan McNeil.
The quest for realism just went to unbelievable levels on The Exorcist. The final portion of the film was set in Regan's bedroom, and Friedkin wanted it to be this unearthly chill in the room, and he wanted to see the actors' breath as they spoke. Now today you could do that with computer-generated effects. You couldn't do that then.
Billy said, I want to see some breath. Okay. And so I built a cocoon around the whole bedroom, 40 feet square, 20 feet high. The walls were about 1.5 feet thick with insulation. I brought in a refrigeration unit and cranked that thing up at night, and we had it down to 10 below zero. And it was cold.
We would do the rehearsal, do the lighting, and turn the air conditioners back on, and everybody would step out until the room cooled down again. And we had to wait until the room was, I think, close to 20 below zero before we could go back in and shoot.
And Billy wore a famous red jumpsuit, which he was always walking around in.
It was cold, it was difficult, it was uncomfortable, and it wasn't pleasant.
Look, Salmon Pity! You killed my mother! Your servant! You left her alone!
Despite the extreme demands on camera, Friedkin made sure his young star enjoyed a regular life off camera, as much as possible anyway.
Warner Brothers rented a very, very beautiful hotel suite overlooking Central Park, and we had our own kitchen and everything. And then on the weekends, my mother made sure that I had, fun times. And so I'd go riding, I would still see my girlfriends from school, could have some sleepovers. So I still had a normal life on the weekends. But during the week, it was heavy work.
Heavy and often dangerous. Blair was yanked violently from one contorted position into another to simulate levitation and other acts of possession.
I made a steel harness, a plate, like in the back, and it was all covered with leather, and it was nice and soft, and I strapped her into it. So underneath the bed, here's the hinge. So if she was just laying there, I wanted to pick her up, I just picked her up. She just straight up. So I could do this, and then bang, you know, send her back down again.
And the lacing came loose on the sides to keep me in, and it started pounding against my lower spine.
And she was just yelling, "Stop, stop, stop."
And then finally it was another thing like that when she said, "Enough is enough," you know, that's when the cameras roll. That's how you get the look on the face.
Basically, they fractured my lower back. But, yeah, so the screaming and yelling is real. And I paid for it the rest of my life, you know, but at the time, I wasn't the type that said, send me to the emergency room. My mother wasn't the type to sue, and we didn't do any of that. And who would know that years later, you know, that I was going to pay for that?
She never, ever complained about anything. Never. And, no matter how hard I thrashed her, you know, I'd say, "Linda, you okay?" You know, and she said, you know, okay.
You know, Linda was a trooper. She was amazing, and she was still a 13, 14-year-old girl at the time, and full of energy. And between takes, she'd be a little girl, and then all of a sudden, Billy would say, "Roll," and she'd go right into the character. She was pretty amazing.
So was Reagan's mother, who also endured the freezing temperatures and some hair-raising stunts.
Nobody was immune from the Friedkin style. Ellen Burstyn, a well-established actress, in one scene was rigged with a harness, and she had to be pushed back against the wall, pulled back, really, with the harness. She said, you know, I could really be injured. I'm not so sure about this.
And Billy, he looked at me and he said, you know, give me the eye. And I give him the eye back, and he said,
and when she turned to go back to the scene, he said to the special effects guy, "Let's really give it to her this time."
So when I took her back the next time, she didn't hit the floor until she got almost to the wall, and hit the wall and bang up against the wall.
If you watch the film, that's real agony on Ellen Burstyn's face. She goes flying back to the ground. She's in real pain, and the camera even pans down to her to catch her expression of pain.
Billy was tickled to death because he got a shot, and Ellen was going to shoot me.
Coming up, Friedkin unloads.
One day Billy went absolutely nuts with the guns.
And later,
the devil could actually manifest itself on Earth by taking over a person's body.
by early 1973, production on The Exorcist entered its 5th month, but the film was plagued by a series of deaths, injuries, and strange accidents, on screen and off. In an attempt to capture pure evil, director William Friedkin made the actors work in bone-chilling cold. However, by spring 1973, execs at Warner Brothers turned up the heat on Friedkin.
It's the only time I've ever had to go before the board of directors and reassure them about a picture and its budget, because it developed that media madness of it's a runaway, it's completely out of control, it's a disaster, blah, blah, blah.
The movie went on, and it went on, and it went on.
The reason we were over budget was because Billy was so open and would share challenges about, you know, the breath in the frozen room, the rotating head. We knew that it couldn't be anything less than perfect in terms of effects, because then the whole thing would blow up in smoke.
In fact, Friedkin pushed for perfection in every scene, and nerves frayed.
The fights were endless. They probably fired every day. No one took it particularly seriously. Except for Dick Smith, the makeup artist, who actually did take it seriously.
Finally, Friedkin went too far. He ordered Smith to cut Max von Sydow's hair, Smith warned him that a makeup line would show. Friedkin said, do it anyway.
I'm pretty tired, and I've been working 7 days a week, the whole production. He comes in, and the first thing he sees is the back of the neck, and he sees there's a little line of demarcation there. And he says, this is terrible, or something or other, or this is Mickey Mouse, or something like that. He said, I told you that would happen. He says, don't raise your voice to me. Well, I couldn't take that. My ego and everything else and my exhaustion said, I said, that's it, I quit.
Dick Smith was reeling. He called a psychiatrist buddy and explained the situation.
Did you say you've been working 7 days a week for the last 4 months? He said, very simple, you're having a nervous breakdown. So I said, would you put that in writing? He said, sure. So he gave me a letter, but Dick's got to get some. I took it in the first thing in the morning, put it on Billy's desk and said, Billy, I'd like to finish, but I've got to have at least 1 day off a week. No problem. Put you back in business.
Still, the hours were long and the surprises kept coming.
William Friedkin employed a form of direction on The Exorcist that you might call full body contact. For instance, he had guns placed all over the set in secret, and in the middle of takes, without warning the actors, he would fire off the guns to elicit a real reaction from them, a real fearful, stunned reaction.
He would tell me when he was going to do things so that I wouldn't change. Did he shoot guns? Yes. But I knew he was going to shoot them, so maybe because I was in on so much, it wasn't as frightening to me. What it created was such anxiety and a sense for the actors to really, you know, they've just become unnerved, and then they have to give these incredible performances.
One day Billy went absolutely nuts with the guns. He was firing guns with blanks, shotguns, pistols, and so on. I think at Max von Sydow. And in the middle of the shooting, while Billy was firing the guns, someone threw a rubber chicken over the wall of the set into the middle of the shot. And they cut, and Billy came out and was looking for the search for the guilty. But of course, no one would own up to it. And for the crew, it was a moment of great lightness because it was not a light movie; it was a heavy movie.
One of the most shocking moments in The Exorcist occurs when Reagan suddenly spews green vomit at Father Karras. The wife of special effects artist Marcel Vercouter helped with the infamous pea soup scene.
I was just squirting it and using it, and she went through cases of it.
Friedkin wanted the bile to shoot directly from Reagan's mouth, with no camera tricks.
What is it?
So what I literally did was to take some thin sheets, and I would put them over the life mask to form them, to fit the face. So there was a thin, flat gap in between them in the middle. So they were basically flattened tubes. And then put on the other end rubber tubes that would go together in the back and go to a longer hose that would go to Marcel Vercouter's pumper, and with a hot pea soup.
And there was a scene where she's supposed to throw up on his sweater. And the cinematographer got his meter out, and they changed this and they changed that. I'm sitting on the other side of the bed, and I said, my pea soup is getting cold. And I said, if it gets thicker, it's going to be harder to shoot, right? So I raised it up. And I guess I raised it up too much. Anyway, when I hit Jason, I hit him flush in the face. And he had a look on his face, he was going to kill me. And I was behind the bed laughing so hard I couldn't hardly get up. I thought it was the greatest gag in the world to get splattered in the face like that.
On film, however, the scene was anything but funny. In fact, it was downright terrifying. Then, more controversy.
We delicately called the masturbation scene.
Linda Blair performed much of the scene herself, though 21-year-old Eileen filled in for some of the more graphic close-up shots.
It was kind of a rough thing to do to ask a 12-year-old to be in a movie like this, or to portray everything that was going on. And I do know that that's why I was hired to do the masturbation thing, as much because she was only 12 as for any other reason.
I didn't think it was very nice. I didn't think it was good. I was extremely embarrassed. I thought I would never be talking about it again in my life. It was like a horrible thing for me to have to do.
Still, there was no getting around Reagan's foul mouth.
Sometimes people would walk up to her and say, how do you handle, the swearing you have to say and the cursing, all these terrible things you have to do? And she would just say, I'm not doing them, Regan's doing them. So she was able to really compartmentalize in a healthy fashion.
A lot of the dialogue in the movie was not in the script. The only people that knew about that was Billy Friedkin, who wrote it the night before, and me, who sat there and looked at this horrific dialogue and said, I can't say that. And he'd say, yeah, you can. And I'd say, no, I can't say that. I could have knew it was wrong, but I didn't know what it meant.
To see this adorable, apple-faced little girl, saying these horrible things was quite astonishing. And apparently on his first take in the film, in the bedroom, Reagan's bedroom, Max von Sydow was so taken back he had to stop the scene.
Number one, remember, I don't want to say these things anyway. So I'm assuming he's prepared. Well, he wasn't prepared. He yelled cut. He was appalled. And I don't blame him. And then he and Friedkin went and talked. That wasn't easy for anybody. I didn't want to say it, and people didn't want to hear it. It's pretty bad.
I think that it must have been extremely difficult for Linda Blair. I think that there's a big difference between theoretical behavior on a page, and behavior in reality, and to be subjected to all this stuff has got to have some effect on you. There was a lot of sexual material, regardless of how sophisticated she was.
I knew, bottom line was, I was strictly hired help. I had to do what I was told to do because that's how I've been programmed since I was 5 years old.
Coming up, Satan's Roar.
They had her drinking and swallowing egg yolks and vomiting and smoking cigarettes.
What was the title of The Exorcist spoof starring Linda Blair? Log on to eonline.com and test your THS IQ. By May 1973, The Exorcist was in the can, almost. Cast and crew completed the harrowing exorcism sequence, including the abuse of the cross scene. After 224 days of principal photography, director William Friedkin insisted that the film's elaborate prologue be shot on location in Iraq, exactly as written by William Peter Blatty in his novel.
Iraq, oh boy. I can tell you a story about Iraq. How much film have you got?
The Mideast scenes were originally scheduled to be shot first, but delays in obtaining permits and visas killed that plan, pushing production into the blistering heat of the Iraqi summer. Accommodations weren't exactly 4-star.
It was so primitive that in the second largest city in Iraq, if you wanted to call out of the country, you had to go to the post office, make out an application, tell them where you would be, generally speaking, and then they would notify you. Now, you were lucky if maybe 3 days later, they came in the middle of the night at your hotel, woke you up and said you can make your telephone call now.
For the 10-minute desert prologue, Friedkin shot 4 hours of footage.
We were supposed to be there just 1 week. It was so fascinating. It was so picturesque. The things that were, the footage that Billy took just for background stuff, he had a ton of it. And so he was having a ball.
Finally, in July 1973, The Exorcist wrapped. After nearly a year's work, Friedkin flew back to New York to begin post-production.
The film, once it was done, happened to be edited at an address, a very specific address in New York City. It was 666 Fifth Avenue. So maybe that was part of the curse, too.
In October, 2 months before the scheduled release date, Friedkin relocated to the West Coast to mix the blood-curdling soundtrack.
I remember Friedkin pulling out a book of Hieronymus Bosch paintings and saying, I want Linda Blair's voice to sound like these paintings.
Friedkin tried out all sorts of electronic sound effects, but nothing seemed to work. Then he got an idea. To make the demon's voice human. Enter Mercedes McCambridge, a 57-year-old actress with a deep, raspy voice no one could forget. McCambridge won an Oscar for her role in All the King's Men, but The Exorcist called for a new bag of tricks.
I know how hard she worked because Billy Friedkin told me that he kept her up for 24 hours, that he had her drinking and swallowing egg yolks and vomiting and smoking cigarettes. And so she went through a lot. She did her own performance in order to give that performance. And it's incredible.
The sound drives the movie. The Linda Blair voice is unlike anything that we've heard up until that time in the history of film sound.
Everyone who saw the initial cut knew Friedkin achieved the impossible.
I was out in Hollywood for something. It was 6 months later. And I called Billy, and he said, oh, yeah, why don't you come on over? I've just finished putting together the masturbation scene. I looked at that thing. It only runs a little tiny bit over a minute. And though I knew every foot of it, had seen every daily, everything, worked on it, all that intimately, chills went up my spine.
My wife at the time, I had a projection room and I ran it a number of times, and she was terrified. She would play Gregorian chants upstairs while I was looking at it downstairs, so as to create a kind of balance of power in the house.
Meanwhile, America was changing, and audiences were hungry for something new.
It was the end of innocence with Watergate, with Vietnam. There was no more normalcy in the United States, and I think it was a time of panic and great tension.
Yeah, I think for the first time in modern American history, people in the nation were really looking at all these problems and saying, you know, we have all this technology, we have all this modern culture, but is it really helping us?
3 days before The Exorcist opened, Friedkin was still putting the final touches on the film.
In point of fact, it wasn't finished until the very last minute, and I believe that we had to use a couple of the Warner Brothers jet aircraft to get the prints out in time.
Coming up, The Exorcist turns a lot of heads.
People were vomiting, you know, it was just this intense, visceral reaction to the film.
Oh, God, I can't believe it.
After 11 grueling months of production in Georgetown, New York, and Iraq, The Exorcist was finally unleashed on an unsuspecting public. On the day after Christmas 1973, The Exorcist opened at just 22 theaters in select cities across the country.
The studio wasn't really ready for what this film was. They didn't know exactly what they had in their hands. So when Warner Brothers released the movie, they were not ready for the gigantic audiences. People just came and waited for hours and hours to see that movie.
Reaction to the film was unlike anything before in movie history.
I have a friend in there alone, and I don't want to leave her in there alone.
People were running up and down the aisles who came in to see the film. There were people who had reported they fainted, or that people were vomiting, or that people were praying. You know, it was just this intense, visceral reaction.
To capitalize on the buzz, the studio scrambled to book more theaters as fast as possible. William Peter Blatty and William Friedkin suddenly became household names.
The index of how successfully the two Bills did it is that people tended to believe it. I mean, they thought that experientially it was quite possible.
I'm standing here shaking for nothing.
How about you?
It's very, very real.
I don't like it. I want to go home. I want to see if it's going to make me throw up.
I ain't never my coat and looking over my face like that.
Let me finish
The Exorcist
the eye,
broke box office records everywhere.
and then once
Reviews were
we eat,
mixed,
I'll
but
do the
nothing
rest.
stopped audiences from flocking to
Finish
theaters.
The
this
numbers were
anyway.
extraordinary. It became a sort of phenomena. It was, I think, perhaps the most successful film that we had made.
On January 9th, 1974, The Exorcist grabbed 7 Golden Globe nominations, including 2 for Linda Blair as Best Supporting Actress and New Star of the Year. At the ceremony 2 weeks later, the film won for Best Drama, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. And Blair walked away with the Best Supporting Actress trophy.
It was a standing ovation. And it was too much. I'm very sensitive. And I just started crying.
But the curse of The Exorcist wasn't over. In a January 27th New York Times article, actress Mercedes McCambridge blasted Friedkin and Warner Brothers for not giving her a screen credit.
Mercedes McCambridge was hired originally to do The Voice, and there are discrepancies of how the credits went down. You have a credit, you don't have a credit, and I wasn't privy. Very few people were. I don't know the truth behind that. I think anybody should have a pretty good idea. I don't talk like that. And she did an incredible job.
The Screen Actors Guild intervened, and McCambridge eventually got her credit. But more controversy followed. In February 1974, the LA Times reported that Studio Brass urged Eileen Dietz to sign a gag order to prevent her from saying that she doubled for Linda Blair in certain scenes.
That's what her job was. That's what she was hired to do. But Billy didn't want to because you wouldn't be talking about the film today. You would say, well, it was somebody else that did it, and they just had this young girl, and that would have been it.
Despite the controversy, The Exorcist was nominated for an impressive 10 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture. Once again, 15-year-old Linda Blair was a contender for Best Supporting Actress. However, at the ceremony in April, Blair lost to 10-year-old Tatum O'Neal, who won for Paper Moon.
The nomination is something I still have for the rest of my life. But it didn't bother me because adults have more knowledge of why they need to win, maybe, because it can change their career completely. For me, it was more like I was just in awe of being there. And for Tatum to win, that was fine. I thought she did an incredible job.
The Exorcist did win 2 Oscars. William Peter Blatty won the award for Best Adapted Screenplay, and Chris Newman took home the top prize for sound recording.
I was nominated for the French Connection, and we lost to a musical, Fiddler on the Roof. I was nominated for Godfather 1, which is as fine a soundtrack as I've ever been connected with, and we lost to Cabaret. I was nominated for The Exorcist, and the only reason we won was because there were no musicals that year.
The Exorcist didn't score in the top 2 categories, Best Director and Best Picture. However, the film became the second biggest hit of its time, behind The Godfather.
One thing that happened as a result of The Exorcist being such a big hit was that Hollywood saw that they could release movies in hundreds of theaters at the same time. So a few years after this, you had Jaws, which was released on at 400 screens. And the pattern was really set thanks to the success of The Exorcist for the big, wide-release blockbuster movie.
The impact of The Exorcist reached way beyond the box office.
Exorcism was generally regarded as a thing of the past, as a sort of medieval hangover, and people clearly were not missing it. After the movie, there was an explosion of interest in exorcism across the land, and there's no question in my mind that the movie had a great deal to do with it.
Coming up, Playing with Fire.
I do believe there's a different curse of The Exorcist. This curse involves any director attempting to make a sequel to The Exorcist. They're all doomed.
In early 1974, The Exorcist was honored with 4 Golden Globes and 2 Oscars. Legions of fans around the world turned the supernatural thriller into a monster at the box office, spawning a new breed of...
Load.
Horror film. The shocking success of The Exorcist made studio execs hungry for more.
The studios are factories, and they have a factory notion of filmmaking. They fill films with sausages, and factories turn out sausage factories, and if they did it once, they can do it again.
Warner Brothers for many years asked about doing The Exorcist 2. It's only natural to do a sequel. And we said no. No.
All these guys who are planning prequels and sequels, in my opinion, they're just rip-off artists. I would no more direct the sequel of The Exorcist than I would, jump off the roof of this building. Nor have I any interest in seeing them.
William Peter Blatty at the time, I believe, said he didn't only have an idea for a sequel.
And Blatty retained all rights to The Exorcist. However, he granted Warner Brothers a one-time option to produce a sequel without his involvement. In 1975, the studio forged ahead with The Exorcist II, The Heretic. Max von Sydow returned as Father Merrin, and several heavy hitters joined the mix. 16-year-old Linda Blair agreed to reprise her role as Regan McNeil.
They finally presented a screenplay that was so amazing, and you would be foolish to say no. They presented me Richard Burton, James Earl Jones, and John Borman. How could you miss? And for me, just working with Richard Burton, woo!
Finally, on May 24, 1976, shooting began on The Exorcist II, The Heretic, with John Borman directing. But the movie seemed snake-bit.
It was a mess, and it every day changed. Too many cooks spoiled the brew, and the film never had a chance.
For some reason, the creators of Exorcist II decided it was important to name on screen the demon who had haunted Regan in The Exorcist. Now, the character was named in the book. Fine. It was a Mesopotamian mythological god named Pazuzu. Pazuzu looks fine on a page. If you have a theatrical actor like Richard Burton, who played Father Lamont in the film, constantly saying Pazuzu, it becomes funny. I mean, he says, Kakumo can help me find Pazuzu, and Pazuzu, spirit of the air and darkness, lead me to Kakumo. You just can't keep saying Pazuzu and Kakumo in a horror film and expect it to be taken seriously.
Dick Smith was another veteran of the first Exorcist movie who came along for the bumpy ride.
What Borman did was say, use the same contact lenses, but just make her look sexy, and that will be the Pazuzu. Well, first of all, it didn't work on Linda. I mean, she was still pretty young, and she just didn't come off as an evil bitch, shall we say.
Finally, shooting wrapped in November 1977, and 7 months later, The Exorcist II, The Heretic opened nationwide. This time, however, there were no long lines or people fainting in the aisles. In fact, the film was a critical and financial disaster. William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, wasn't surprised.
I looked at it, and I was able to see about an hour of it before I literally got sick. To me, it's a stupid film made by inferior intellects who are just out to rip off an unsuspecting public and separate them from their hard-earned money.
I do believe there's a different curse of The Exorcist, and this one I have lots of proof for. This curse involves any director attempting to make a sequel to The Exorcist. They're all doomed.
But William Blatty believed the sequel's only curse was a lousy story. Blatty had issues with the original film too, and he was determined to make things right.
He felt that some viewers went away from that film feeling that evil had won. Oh, that certainly wasn't his intent. So, after a period of years, he thought, well, I would like to have the other side of that equation. And he wrote this novel, Legion.
Legion was set in Georgetown 15 years after the first Exorcist. The novel hit bookstores in 1983 and became an instant bestseller. But with Legion, Blatty was in no hurry to sell the screen rights. He wanted to direct the movie version himself. 6 years later, in 1989, he got his wish. James Robinson, CEO of Morgan Creek Productions, agreed to bankroll the film.
I felt it was a franchise, and I felt that somewhere down the line it should become a TV series. And if that worked, then we do another sequel or prequel, whatever.
However, the movie Blatty delivered surprised the hell out of studio execs.
It was a subdued, sensitive, intimate film that had all of these really interesting theological discussions in it.
We believe in possession, Father?
What happened is, the studio said, well, we want to sell this as a sequel to The Exorcist, so we want to call it Exorcist 3. And William Blatty had two problems with that. First, there was no exorcism in the film, so why call it Exorcist? Secondly, why would you want to reference Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which was so bad, and give this a pneumo like 3? So that was a problem, but it did become Exorcist 3, and when studio executives realized there's no exorcism in this film, they made him go back and shoot an exorcism for the film, even though it didn't have anything to do with anything.
Despite the contentious debate and a makeshift scene that made little sense, Blatty worked his magic.
Mr. Blatty's The Exorcist 3.
The Exorcist 3 earned $25 million and turned a profit, despite false reviews.
It was faithful enough to The Exorcist to make people remember The Exorcist fondly, yet it was original enough and interesting enough to have its own life force, to have its own intelligence to it. I think it was a good and underrated film,
be back in
and way better
I don't know when
than
I'll be
The
back.
Heretic. No Pazuzu in this one.
Take it easy. Catch you later.
Coming up.